Why do they keep changing the way this shit is done? Okay, if you guys will bear with me. What does it say? Mirroring is if you're not watching the mirror video as you are. I'm not trying to do that. All right, I'm going to have to end up probably. I'm trying to figure out. They keep changing the way they do the damn video. So now instead of me being able to flip the video, good afternoon, good evening, folks who are just tuning in. I was trying to mirror my video because everything is obviously backwards. And once again, TikTok has changed the way you do it. They keep updating the app and changing shit. So having said that, I don't think I can mirror the damn video. This is really fucked up. All right, let me see if I can. Yeah, it's telling me your viewers are now watching. Okay. I don't know. It was right. Okay, is it right? Is it right now? You guys let me know. Can you see it right now? Because I cannot. Do you sort of video is flipped around? Is the text correct? Let me know. Okay, it is good right now. All right. Okay, I am going to go ahead and start. Appreciate you guys who have been riding through all of that bullshit, but it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. As you see behind me on the monitor, we're going to be asking the simple question: are the Republicans wrong for busing immigrants up north? As you know, on Christmas Eve, in some 8-degree weather, Governor Abbott of Texas sent several busloads of migrants up north to the home of Kamala Harris. Clearly, if you see the video, they were not even prepared for the weather. They were not dressed properly. Some of them were in as little as flip-flops. Just want to run a quick few seconds by you guys, and we're gonna talk about this because I think it's worthy of discussing. And I'm going to give you one simple point after the quick video.
We are hearing from the advocates who helped dozens of migrants. 140 of them arrived in D.C. on Christmas Eve. They were bused from Texas to the vice president's home, some of them wearing just T-shirts in 18-degree weather.
These buses were actually initially intended to go to New York and then shifted to D.C. because of the weather.
Most folks are coming with what they can carry, so people are arriving without adequate clothing for the cold weather.
Organizers say D.C. is not the final destination for most of the migrants. Many have been redirected by bus or plane. Those who are staying are being placed in hotels. In a press release, Texas Governor Greg Abbott blamed the White House for inaction.
Okay, and there's no denying that the Biden-Kamala Harris administration has not been good at the border. You're not going to hear that from yours truly in regards to the Biden administration. Even though you see the program is titled, obviously, the handsome liberal, I am not here to pretend like President Biden has done a good job at the border. However, does this solve anything? What is the purpose of this? Is this the right thing to do on Christmas Eve? As always, I give you my spiel that I give all of the viewers every time. This is a MAGA friendly zone. MAGA are my preferred guests. No one gets banned, blocked, or censored here for their commentary. Even if you disagree with the host, it doesn't mean a damn thing here. Give you plenty of time in the box to state your point without any fear of banning, censorship, or anything of that nature. So the question we're going to ask, is this the right thing to do? Now, looking in the comments, Tide Fan 71 says, "Good job, Governor." I don't get what is the purpose of it? What is the goal? If you want to send immigrants to the home of Kamala Harris, I want to get you guys in the comments. Let me know, for you guys who do support this, what was the goal? Was the goal achieved? Etc., etc. If you want to come in the box is wide open. Give you plenty of time to state your point, and you don't have to agree with me for a damn. I'll give you plenty of time to state it. All right. Well, I love every everybody, but when you know what's gonna happen, why come here illegally? Says Miss Kelly one. That's a good question. I don't disagree that you should not come to the country illegally, but as a fellow American, do you believe there should be a limit on what we can do if someone enters the country illegally? Should we be able to just take their lives, set them on fire, put them in a moat? I think someone suggested that Trump actually openly discussed putting a moat, a little creek worth of water in front of the border and actually putting dangerous wildlife in the moat, such as piranhas or alligators. I don't know if that's true. I'm not going to pretend like that's actual fact, but someone from his own administration stated that he was talking about doing that. So, in regards to coming here illegally and trying to discourage folks from doing it, do you believe there should be a limit for what is done to someone trying to enter our country? Or should we be like, say, Russia during the Berlin Wall or North Korea, where you can actually take the life of someone crossing the border illegally? Looking in the comments, it is the Honorable Bionic Man Keith. We'll go straight box. Hopefully TikTok worked properly. Bionic Man, good evening.
What's going on, man? I hope you had a Christmas.
Absolutely, you too. So, what do you think about this? Do you think this is the right thing to do? Does it send a message? I mean, what is the goal of busing immigrants to the home of the vice president?
Of course not. This is a tit for tat thing. It's childish. It's the Democrats let everybody in. They're doing it for votes. The Republicans come back. They're busing everybody. They're human beings to like get back at them. We're using human life like
Yeah.
it's a toy.
But when you say tit for tat, are you suggesting that the Republicans are doing this to get back at the Democrats?
Absolutely they are.
Wow.
And it's sad. It's sad that we're using
Yeah.
human beings as a ploy to get back at the Democrats. And I blame the Democrats for letting like just hordes of people into the country for votes. And then I blame the
Right.
Republicans for using this as a ploy to say, well, you're letting everybody into the country. We can't handle it on the borders, which they can't. These cities along the borders can't handle the inrush of this many immigrants coming into the country. They're being
Right.
overwhelmed. It's like, so then their answer is, well, screw you. I'm just going to start busing them everywhere. And we're going to drop them off on your doorstep. We're going to prove a point because, now we're going to start acting like 2-year-olds because you're 2-year-olds. It's like, Kamala, who's been tasked with this job to like handle the border, and she hasn't. It's like, this is why it's tit for tat. It's
Yeah, but
one group
I guess but the question I guess I want to ask is, come election time, because the Democrats are often trying to pin the Republicans as racist and all of this other stuff. How can folks respond when they point to something like this? I mean, does this make Republicans look like they hate immigrants?
I think to a large portion of the people it does. Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, when you have a certain population that's a certain race, like you got all of these brown people coming across the border, it's going to look bad. You're going to show an image that you're intolerant to a certain group of people, no matter how you perceive it. Whether you have mayors that are along the southern border and they are of Mexican heritage, and they're saying, we cannot handle this influx at this magnitude of people. Like, you had
right.
3 million people coming into the country across this border this year.
But with those numbers, if you are Governor Abbott and you're pleading for help because you can't handle as many people that are coming in, what are they supposed to do if the Democratic administration is ignoring them?
Sure, they're not working together. This is what I'm talking about. They both act like a bunch of kids. They, this is where they need to sit down like adults, which they never fucking do, and they need to come up with a solution. This has been
Yeah,
going on.
what I'm asking you, though, I get that they need to work together. We're not disagreeing on that. But if you're Governor Abbott and you are not getting any sort of agreement with the Biden administration, yet all of these folks are flowing in, what would you do as governor if he was refusing to play ball with you?
You have to work with the other governors. You have to reach out to the other governors. If the on the federal level they're not going to do it, then you need to reach out to other governors and say, look, we have X amount of people in this country coming across the southern border. Is it possible that you take a certain amount of these people and work with the other governors? There's
Well,
going to be governors out there that are going to work with you.
But here's the problem. The state of Texas, California, and Arizona, and I believe New Mexico, because they all are border states, they do receive additional FEMA money because so many immigrants come in their way. So if they call up, say, Kansas and say, will you take some of these immigrants? The governor of Kansas is probably going to say no for a couple reasons. First of all, I'm not getting any FEMA money. But second of all, my constituents, if I'm in a red state like Kansas, and you call me up as governor, my constituents don't want that shit here. I'm going to say no.
Then get it on record. Get it on record that all of these governors are turning it down so that you can turn that back onto the federal government and say, hey, 45 states are turning me down.
Yeah.
That's the thing. At least you got it on record that you can look back at the Biden administration and say, look, I reached out and they're turning me down. What do you want me to do with these human beings that are coming across the border?
Well, but when you really look at the Republican agenda on this, they don't want them coming across the border to begin with. So the idea of what do you want me to do with them, really what Governor Abbott wants Biden to say is send them back. That's what I want you to do. And of course, Biden is not going to say that. So even if it comes down to what you suggested, splitting them among other states, most folks on the right would not be happy with that either. The only true answer that folks on the right are going to accept is send their asses back, or as Trump suggested, at 5 years in prison minimum. So, or back, whatever the case, Trump was suggesting a maximum prison sentence or a minimum. I think he wanted a minimum of 5 years in prison. Those are probably the only things you're going to get from the conservative side of the aisle.
Yeah, I don't agree with a prison sentence. That's to me, that's now you're just talking insanity. You know, it's like,
well,
what
you
are you
didn't
going
hear
to start?
I'm
What are
gonna
we
take
going
it
to
you
do?
didn't hear about the moat. You think the prison sentence is insanity. I'm assuming you did not hear about the moat.
No, it's like, what are we doing? Going back to medieval days and we're going to put alligators in a moat? I mean, come on. Like, this is the solutions we're coming up with. It's like, I mean, it's just when we start going down that road, I just go, there's no hope. This is why I don't vote for either one of these morons.
Fair
like
enough.
I'm really hoping that it's going to be interesting in 2 years to see who's on the tickets, because I don't see Biden on the ticket. It's like I'm hoping that Trump is not on the ticket. It's going to be interesting to see who is on the ticket for the Democrats.
Yeah, I got to move it on. But before I go, Trump is already on the ticket. What are you suggesting? He gets taken off the ticket somehow?
Yes, I'm hoping.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see.
I don't want him on there. I just think he's too toxic anymore.
Yeah, you're not the only one, but appreciate you coming through, man. I got to move it on.
All right, man. Have a good New Year.
Absolutely. You too. You too.
Get in the comments here real quick. Texas ships illegals to make Dems talk about it. And that probably is, there is some truth to that. Your daddy, I love the name. In regard, and I'll go right back to the box. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. This is a MAGA-friendly program. MAGA is my preferred guest, but liberals are welcome too. In regards to shipping immigrants, to get Democrats to talk about it. Yeah, you're damn right they're going to talk about it. It is a great talking point. Come election time, that's going to be brought up that they sent a bunch of brown people into a frigid zone. I understand plenty of my beloved MAGA viewers certainly love what was done there with Governor Abbott, but come election time, yeah, that's going to be brought up. Expect that to be used as political capital. Going back to the box, it is Ernie Contreras. I think I had Duke in there. Okay, Ernie, can you hear me?
I don't know. Okay, there we go. Ernie, good evening.
Good evening, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. What do you think about Abbott busing migrants up to the home of Kamala Harris? No warning, no registration, didn't notify them or anything. Do you think that's the right move to make?
No, it's not. And the reason I say that, I'm a son of immigrants. You know what I mean? My parents migrated here 30 years ago, 40 years ago now. And, they came here for a better life. And most immigrants, that's what they're coming for. And the problem is that I have yet to see a farmer, a manufacturing company, a hotel industry come out to the border and say, hey, illegal immigration is bad for us. Because they need it. They need these immigrants to work. I'm telling you.
I don't wait. Let me interrupt this because you sound very similar to George Bush when he said they will do jobs no Americans want. I always counter that, but I counter that by saying it's not that immigrants will do jobs no Americans want. It's that we have allowed corporations, businesses, farmers, hotels to pay such a shitty wage that Americans will not do the job because they can't live off of it. A prime example would be if your septic tank goes out in the back of your house or in the basement or wherever the hell it's located, you will have no problem finding a plumber that will go knee deep in shit to fix your septic tank because it pays a good wage. It's not that no Americans will do these jobs. They don't pay shit. And those jobs used to be done by Americans before we had a huge illegal immigration problem. So I don't think it's that we won't do it. We should make those particular businesses pay a proper salary.
But they won't. That's the hardest thing that people don't understand. I see a lot of comments saying, "Oh no, they don't." Listen, you're not going to pay somebody $15 an hour to pick grapes in the Central Valley of California, or pick peaches or pick oranges. You're going to pay them the least amount of money possible that you can. Like out here in California, where I'm at, they pay them about $9 and $11. I think that's the minimum wage.
Okay.
I worked out there. I mean, you could say that normal people will work those wages if they paid them $15 an hour. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, my dad was having an issue getting workers because my dad was a farm laborer. He was the one that take the workers out there. They couldn't find anybody to work because of the whole COVID thing, and people couldn't come over the border.
Yeah, but we had a time in this country. Yeah, but we had a time in this country before we didn't used to have a huge illegal immigration problem in the 60s and 70s. Yet we still had plenty of oranges in this country. We had hotels you could go stay at.
Because we had a Bracero program. Because we had the Bracero program. My grandpa was a part of the Bracero program where they would allow them to come into this country, work. They would pay into the system, which was back in the 70s and 80s, I believe, and they would get their money deposited. I think Bank of America and Wells Fargo ran that system where they get paid, and they had a number, like they would have a number to work for, and they would get pay their taxes or whatever on that. So they did have a Bracero program back then. They stopped it. I think if they came back with the Bracero program, I think a lot of this illegal immigration thing would end. Because a lot of them, they just want to work. You know what I mean? A lot of them, they just want to work. So if you give them an opportunity
I agree that the talking point that they're coming here for free health care and food stamps is not true. They are coming here to work. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I mean, they want better things for their families too. Like, you know what I mean? They want their kids to have a good education system. I mean, I'm not going to bash Mexico, but Mexico's educational system is not as great as ours. You know what I mean? They want their kids to have what everybody else, has and whatnot. And I mean, and it's not like people are just crossing the border. It's dangerous. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah,
my
but
dad talked about it.
when you say about how bad Mexico's education system is, or the cartel and the danger you're about to get into, first thing that
Yeah.
comes to mind, in my opinion, is we've invaded all these other damn countries like China and Vietnam to stop the spread of communism. We've been in Iraq, we've been in Afghanistan for little bullshit skirmishes. I hate to say it, but we need to do whatever we can to make Mexico a more desirable country. If you can make Mexico a more desirable country for its own inhabitants to stay there, that would cut out some of the problem and demand that they maintain their southern border. Because a lot of immigrants are using their country as a thoroughfare to come through. If we can go to Afghanistan and fight so that women can drive a car, why not do something that would have a much greater effect on this country? If we made Mexico more inhabitable for its own citizens, don't you think that would cut a lot of this down?
It can, but like you said, it's corruption and money and the cartels. You know what I mean? They own
Yeah,
the politicians there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And the
but
politicians there are so afraid. The politicians there are afraid of the cartel because like I've heard on the news. The judges out there are getting killed. The senators out there. The governors of each of those states are getting killed if you go against the cartel. You know what I mean? Like their firepower is just a lot more than what that country can handle. I agree with that, though. I think that we should invest and help them out as far as their infrastructure with that, you know what I mean? Because the cartels are just making too much money off of the drug business, you know what I mean? Let's just
well,
keep
the
it honest.
problem with the
And we're the
cards,
number one.
yeah, that was
We're
what
the
you were
number one.
about to get
We're
to.
the number one. We're the
Exactly.
number one demand for those drugs. You know what I mean? People can sit here and talk about how the cartel's bad, but we're the ones that buy it. You know what I mean? We buy the
I
marijuana,
don't
we buy the
believe
cocaine, we buy all
I
that.
don't I don't believe the problem is just that we're the number one customer for the cartel. I would also submit to you that we are the number one co-partner for the cartel as well. There are plenty of
Yeah.
politicians, border patrol agents, and other law enforcement officials that are in the pocket of the cartels, just like dealing
Well,
drugs
I
on a
mean, if you're
lower
getting, I mean,
level.
yeah, if you're getting offered millions of dollars, you know what I mean, to keep your mouth shut and let stuff go through. I mean, in this kind of economy and whatnot. I mean, if somebody came up to a border patrol agent and said, "Hey, here's $5 million," I got a couple,
Right.
shipments coming through. Don't say nothing. What do you think the border patrol agent is gonna say? You know what I mean? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know how many people would turn down that kind of money. You know what I mean? And you're right.
Right.
It's hard. It's a catch-22. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and that's
That
why
that's
that's
how.
why I was saying that's why I said at the beginning of our conversation, I think the only solution is that America has to get more deeply involved in Mexican politics. Because what's happening is the other way around. You're starting to have more immigrants from those countries, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. They're coming to America and they're becoming legalized and they're getting more involved in American politics and thereby changing our country more, to fit some of the customs of that country. But because the issue is coming from that direction, I believe we need to get more involved in Mexican politics and make that country more desirable so that people, because at the end of the day, they don't want to leave their home and their culture. They're doing it because they're desperate. So make it so they
Yeah.
want to stay.
Yeah, desperation. I mean, that's what I'll tell. You're right. It's desperation. Whatever situation they're in those Central American and Mexican country, they're desperate to make another move. You know what I mean? Whether they're being overran by the cartels in their like in Sinaloa or Michoacan, where that I have cousins out there in Michoacan that said that they can't be out of their house after 8 o'clock at night because of the gunfire and the fights. You know what I mean? With these factions that are just
So
fighting over for the drug cartel.
wow. Okay, I do got to move it on, but before I let you go, since you have contacts and family in south of the border, is that the
Mm.
message that they're receiving down there that with Biden in office, our borders are wide open? Is that what they're receiving down there?
No, I mean, I just talked to my cousin from Tijuana, and he said that they're not allowed to come over. You know what I mean? Like the message from their newscast is like, hey, don't go over there unless you have something to do, like unless you're working. You know what I mean? They don't
Right.
want the borders to be packed. You know what I mean? They don't because the problem is if you overrun the border with cars and whatnot, it takes less time for them to catch the shipments of drugs. You know what I mean? Because if the border is full of cars trying to come over, they let so many cars over because they can't check every single car that comes through. You know what I mean? That's just
Oh,
physically impossible to do.
right.
You know what I mean? And cartels know that. Cartels will flood the border with cars and trucks or whatnot. And hey, if they get 2 or 3 caught, 20 of them came through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
get.
they might
It's,
have
yeah, I
lost some
get
money
what
at
you're
that time,
saying.
but
You're playing a numbers game. I get it.
yeah, and that's it is. That's all it is. And I mean, like they keep telling me, like we went to visit last month, and they said no. It's like people seem to think that they're telling us to go over there, and it's like they're not. They're telling us to stay put. They're not try to go over there. But you know what I mean. People
Wow.
even my cousin said, he goes, when people get desperate, you know what I mean. They try anything. I mean,
Yeah.
they're out there crossing with their 2, 3-year-old sons, kids. You know what I mean. No shoes on. You know and when people get that
Now,
desperate, they just don't
are
really.
you naturally you said you're an immigrant. Are you descendant of an immigrant, or were you born in America?
My parents immigrated here in the 1970s. I was born here.
So
Yeah, I was born
how
here.
do you feel? What do you believe, since you're that close to immigrants, which is you're one step away from immigration? How do you feel, or better yet, what do you believe should happen to an immigrant caught entering this country illegally that says they're fleeing, poverty, or they're fleeing for their lives? What do you think should happen to them?
I mean, we do have an amnesty program here in the United States, but I mean, I get the frustration from all the Americans. You know, people are just coming over and taking over and whatnot. But I mean, that's me seeing it from my eyes. Honestly, all I've seen is these people were just working. You know what I mean? They come to work.
Right.
They come to make a good living. I mean, they as many people would say, the worst thing about illegal immigration is they provide $60 billion a year in Social Security that they will never touch.
Yeah,
You know what I
that is
mean?
true.
They will
That
never
is
touch
true.
that money. They will never touch that money. So that's free money that other people like me are gonna end up getting, and these people will never see it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
In my town where I live in, I mean the grocery stores are full Friday and Saturdays when they get paid, and they're walking out with carts full of food, carts full of for the week of work. You know what I mean? They're at the
right.
malls, they're at the stores buying clothes for their kids so they can go to school. I mean, so people can say that they're not pitching into to this economy. They're ridiculous. I mean, they're not. They may not be paying payroll taxes, but they're paying sales taxes on everything that they're using. I mean, they're renting
All right.
houses, they're buying houses,
Yeah, there's
they're
taxes on
buying
everything
cars.
you buy in this. Yeah, there's taxes on everything you buy in the country. But listen, I gotta move it on, Ernie. I appreciate you coming through, man.
Hey, thanks for letting me in, man.
Absolutely a pleasure. Mary.
By the way, and Happy New Year, all you guys that are watching. That's the question we're trying to ask. Now, obviously, as you see on the screen, we're talking about migrants being bussed up to the home of Kamala Harris. Do you support that? Do you think that was the right thing to do? I want to talk to someone in the box. As I make it clear, it's a MAGA-friendly program. I would love to hear from someone who supports what took place. I would love to have a conversation with someone who thinks that what Governor Abbott and earlier Governor DeSantis out of Florida, folks who believe that was the right thing to do. Now, in the comments, they say the screen is backwards. I don't understand why the hell TikTok is not letting me fix the screen. There's nothing I can do about the screen other than restarting the whole damn live. So I apologize that the writing is backwards. I don't know. TikTok changed their whole damn setup. Anyway, looking at the comments, they are causing the problem, so I 100% support it. What is the problem? You said they're causing the problem. Will freedom. What it is, define what you mean when you say they're causing the problem. Here's Johnny. I do want to hear from someone on the right.
Want to hear someone who would support this. Johnny is the man. Always a friend of the program. Good evening, Johnny. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that good shit to you. So, what do you think about this?
Hey, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you too, first of all, and good to see you again.
Thank you.
What do I think about the Governor Abbott and DeSantis busing illegal immigrants?
Yes. Well, I don't. But that's the thing. Are we 100% certain they were here illegally, though? I don't even know that. But go ahead.
Um, well, I support it. I think it raised awareness and it made sanctuary cities face reality. They get on TV, these mayors, and they want to denigrate and talk down about these border cities, and they should shut up and stop complaining. And they got a bleeding heart and wanting to help all these illegal immigrants. But when you ship them to their city, now bells and whistles are going off, and they're raising the
Well,
alarms.
you're
Look at New York City. That mayor is raising alarm bells and freaking out. DC also.
okay, and that's a good point. Let's say a kid breaks into my car, and my response is to go outside with an AK-47 and unalive the child. What the child was doing is wrong, but I'm not going to get a lot of sympathy by going outside with an AK-47 and taking the life of a child. The point I'm trying to make is, even though you may be correct in the lackluster response that the Biden administration is doing with the immigrants, you support sending immigrants to sub-zero temperatures with they couldn't even give them clothes. You think that's a good thing to do?
If you're a sanctuary city, shouldn't you be always ready, willing, and able to jump right in and help out? I mean, if you're a sanctuary
Yeah,
city, if you call
yeah.
yourself a sanctuary city, then be a sanctuary city. Don't just use the name. Oh, we're a sanctuary city. Oh, we can't handle illegal immigrants. We can't handle anymore. Oh, are you a sanctuary city or not?
So you send them improperly dressed in sub-zero temperatures on New Year's Eve when a lot of facilities are closed. It was a goal to test the sanctuary city, to test their resources.
No, I'm not saying that. Now, maybe sending them to a cold place unequipped, that was wrong. But at the
Yeah.
same time, sanctuary cities should be like, oh, sure, let's go to wherever, Walmart, and you buy a bunch of coats and stuff. Let's get it done. That
That's a
should have
good
been.
point. That's a
And
good point. But
plus,
that's a good point. But if you
plus
want,
another
if you
point,
okay,
another
go
point,
ahead.
real quick. Your question is, are Republicans wrong for busing immigrants?
Right.
Do you believe Democrats are wrong for busing immigrants?
Well, give me an
They've
example
done
of
it.
Democrat. I mean, I know Biden moved immigrants in the middle of the night, but
Yeah. And
When
he
Biden
moved them,
busted, yeah, but
he,
when Biden busted the immigrants, he was not trying to make a political point. He was actually trying to help them out.
he didn't even notify the governors when he shipped them.
Yeah,
And
but
when the press secretary was asked about it, they specifically was asked, why are you sending illegal immigrants to other states in the middle of the night without notifying anyone? Why would you do that?
I don't
And her
recall hearing the
response, hold
governors.
on, hold on,
I don't recall
her
hearing the governors.
response,
You're saying, wait a minute. You're saying he didn't notify the governors. I don't recall hearing any governor that of any state he sent the immigrants to complaining about this.
DeSantis. I
Well, the
specifically
Senate
remember
is complaining
DeSantis.
about them coming in the country.
I specifically remember DeSantis saying, I was not notified of this. It was in the middle of the night. There was a reporter asked the press secretary that very thing about shipping them in the middle of the night and why are they doing it? Instead of saying they're not doing that and they're notifying governors, she didn't say that. She said it's not in the middle of the night. It's 2 or 3 in the morning, so it's early morning. That was her response.
Well, that's a good point.
So, in
As
other
I
words,
stated,
they're
hang on,
doing it.
let me respond, because one of the things you said earlier I want to respond to as well. You mentioned if it's a sanctuary city, people should be willing to go to Walmart and buy them things. And I was going to ask you, shouldn't they at least let the people know they're coming so they can actually go to Walmart and buy that stuff?
Yeah, they should let them know they're coming, just like,
Yeah.
Biden should have let DeSantis know they're coming. Anytime you're
So what you're
shipping
saying is both.
people,
So what you're saying is they're both wrong.
was when they stepped off the plane in Florida, were there people there waiting with hot meals? They didn't even know they were coming.
Yeah, but when they
So were
stepped
they
off the plane in Florida,
meals,
when they stepped
clothing, housing, nothing was ready.
Wait a
They
minute.
just
You're
got off the
saying,
plane.
hold on, hang on. You're saying that Biden did the exact same thing that DeSantis and Abbott did, where Biden sent immigrants to Florida and just the bus just left. You're telling me that's what happened?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I wouldn't say
How-
Biden, but his administration. Biden
Where
don't
did
know his
they,
ass from a hole in
where
the
did the
ground.
bus pull up at? Where did the bus pull up in front of DeSantis' home? Where did it pull up at? I
No,
don't
it was
think
at
this is
they flew him to Florida.
okay. It
And
just
I
left
don't
at
know
the
I don't
airport.
know the airport, but I do know the story. I mean, it was a while ago. I didn't
Okay.
memorize the story, but you can
Let
easily
me
look
say
it up.
this. Let me say this. I don't believe, and I don't have the story just like you. I don't have it all, but I don't believe the story you're giving me is the whole story because we know DeSantis is not immigrant friendly. So the last thing you would want to do is just leave a bunch of immigrants in a random place without any type of care in a state like Florida. I would have to hear more of that story, where that bus or where the plane left these people, because what Abbott and DeSantis did is they literally pulled the bus up in front of a home, said, get off, and the bus left. They didn't verify they had anywhere to go, any clothes, any food. They just said this is a sanctuary location and help should come find you. But we're not going to call the help. We're not going to verify anything. We're going to kick you out and help should come find you. I don't think Biden did that.
Well, you would like to think Biden didn't do that because you're a Democrat, but he did.
Well,
He did.
like I said, I'm not saying he didn't, but I'm saying based on what I'm hearing, I didn't hear DeSantis complaining that Biden left people in this state with nobody to care for them, no location or anything. I need to hear more of that story.
Yeah, it was all over the news. DeSantis absolutely said this is bullshit. You know, he's flying these people to my state in the middle of the night with no notice. And you know that's true because its press secretary was asked about it, and her response was, well, it's not middle of the night, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. So when people say you're flying them in the middle of the night, that encompasses and means without notice, in the dead of night, without notice. So
Yeah,
yes,
but you're saying that.
Biden was flying them
But you're
without
basically
notice.
saying that when Biden sent them to Florida in the middle of the night, they didn't verify they had shelters or food or anything. They just dropped them
Nothing.
off and left.
They got off the plane, and it was a big surprise to Florida. Florida
But when
dealt
they
with it,
got
but
off
they
the
were like,
plane,
holy shit.
but when they got off the plane, what happened when they got off the plane is what I'm talking about.
Oh, then customs would greet them, wouldn't they?
I
They're
don't
illegal
know.
immigrants.
Okay, all right. I'd have to look it up. I can't dispel what you're saying, but I'd have to look
They're
that
going to
up.
get off the plane and be like, okay, now what? Where do we go? And, you know, people are going to start asking questions. Customs is going to get involved and say, where are you coming from? Some law enforcement agency is going to get involved and then call the necessary people to help them out. And I
Okay.
guess, you know, when they say in the middle of the night, what do you think it means? You think they notified them and sent them in the middle of the night, or you think they were pissed off because it was in the middle of the night with no notice?
No, I believe that Biden sent them in the middle of the night. I believe that, but I don't believe
With no
he
notice.
didn't check to see if there were shelters available. That's where we disagree. Is that because this is a U.S. news story, and this is coming from the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. We have received word of the flights, and yes, we are coordinating closely with state officials and local service providers who are prepared to welcome these families in an orderly manner as they pursue their asylum claims. This is in regards to sending them to Florida. This is a statement that they said is that they coordinated with local officials. Now, what you're saying is that press secretary lied about it, though, so I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
She is not too good to lie on any given day, but I'm not saying she's lying about that. What I'm saying, you got to look into it as when the alarm bells went off and DeSantis says this is bullshit. Why are you doing this? And she was asked that question, and her response, then they started notifying people. Okay. Then they started saying, oh shit, we got caught with our pants down. Maybe we should notify them because everybody across the country is saying, what the hell are you doing? You're sending these illegal immigrants to us with no notice in the middle of the night.
Well,
So
so
then
let
they
me say
started.
this: if what you're saying is true, and in my opinion, if what you're saying is absolutely true, then yeah, they should actually go after Biden, because if he's bringing in people who are here illegally and randomly dropping them off in a different part of the country and not advising anybody, they should go after him. And if they do not go after him, it will, in my opinion, be proof that what you're saying is not correct. But they should go after him. If they can
They,
prove that he
but
brought
they
in
won't.
illegal immigrants and just took them to some other area, didn't care about their welfare or anything, and dropped them off, they should go after him.
Everybody knows he did. I mean, in the middle of the night, that's what they meant. But they won't go. The liberal media won't go after Biden. I mean,
I'm
look
not
at
talking
what
about the
happened.
media. I'm talking about
Look
the
at what happened.
Republican Congress.
Yeah, Congress. Look at how bad they went after Trump when they thought he did a quid pro quo in Ukraine, and they were ready to put him in jail. Congress,
Right.
everybody's ready to throw the book at him. But when they figured out, oh, wait, that was Biden, then they said, never mind, forget it. We're not going after
Well,
him.
and I get your point. Trump is a different story. The guy likes to make enemies, and unfortunately, when you make enemies, people will make up stuff and come after you. So even if Trump is correct in saying that there were witch hunts, even if Trump is correct in saying the election was stolen from him, it all happened for one reason. He kept running his mouth and making enemies. So that's a whole different argument. But when it comes
Yeah,
to
no, it's
Biden,
not really. I mean, if you look at, you're asking if they'll go after Biden, and I just gave you a for instance on if it was Trump, he would have been in jail. But when they figured out it was Biden, they said, we're not even going to look into that. Never mind. You know,
if
that's a quid
Biden
pro
if
quo.
Biden was making as many enemies as Trump did, they would not have overlooked Biden. They would
Wait,
have won
wait a
right
minute.
after him, as you're suggesting.
So you're going to pick and choose who you're going to prosecute based on their personality?
That
That
is
doesn't make sense.
I get what you're saying in regards to that's not right, but that is the American way. If you get pulled over for a speeding ticket and you start running your mouth, you're going to get more tickets than the average guy pulled over for speeding. That's the American way. When you make enemies and you disrespect people, they come after you.
So if you're a nice guy, you can commit treason, but if you're an asshole and you commit treason, they're going to prosecute you.
You ever
That's
heard
not
of the, you
right.
ever heard of the phrase "getting more honey with getting more flies with honey than vinegar"? Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, but that doesn't apply to the justice system.
Well, yeah, actually, it does.
It should
being
not.
mean,
Well, it
being
shouldn't.
mean has consequences.
Well, it shouldn't apply to our government or to our law enforcement. But Lady Justice has her blindfold off, and it does.
Have
Look at
you not seen how many African Americans have met unsavory endings because they were talking shit to law enforcement, even though the shit was protected by their First Amendment rights? And everybody said, if you didn't disrespect the police, this wouldn't have happened to you. Our justice system pays closely attention to how you speak.
so you're justifying Congress acting differently if somebody commits a
I'm not.
crime. If somebody they were going to put in jail for the same exact infraction, they hate Trump. They're going to go after him no matter what he says. It's okay for them to go after Trump for the exact same thing Biden actually did when they figured out Trump didn't do it and Biden did do it. They said, never mind.
Yeah.
Same thing with
Well,
Hillary in that dossier. They said Trump colluded with Russia. When they figured out he didn't, and Hillary actually paid Russians to write a dossier, that's colluding with Russia.
Okay. Okay, well, let me make it clear to you. I'm not justifying anything. I am explaining it. I am simply telling you, when you are disrespectful to people, you encounter more problems, even in the justice system. You can do the same crime as someone else, and if you are disrespectful, the punishment to you is going to be greater. That is not fair, but that is our system.
I don't know. The Republicans didn't go after Trump.
You're not
Most of
hearing
them
what I'm
didn't.
saying. You're not hearing
You're
what I'm
not hearing
saying.
what I'm
You're
saying.
ignoring what
Democrats
I'm
went after
saying.
them.
I'm telling you
So
that Trump
Democrats
was.
won't.
You're
Give
not
me a for
hearing me
instance
though.
on when. Give me for instance when Democrats went after their own.
You're not
When did
hearing
they?
me.
When did they go after their own? They
I
won't do
keep
it.
talking about the consequences of being disrespectful when you're going everywhere else but what I'm talking about. You're ignoring what I'm saying. There are consequences to being disrespectful. No matter what you point out, whether it's true or not, you still have to realize there are consequences to disrespecting people.
Hey, I'm sorry, my wife just came home and my dogs are barking like crazy. I had to
All
mute my
right.
mic. But hey, I'll talk to you again soon then, brother.
Always a pleasure. Come on back to any tab, Johnny.
Looking in the comments section, he is lost. Who figured it out? Trump was impeached twice. He did. Yeah. You have been proven wrong. Says fuck this shit. I'm done. Okay, fair enough. The host is losing the argument. If I was losing the argument, Trump would be pretty much free of any cases, well on his way of becoming president. In fact, he would have still been president. I strongly believe, on paper, Trump probably should have been reelected, but running his mouth, making enemies, talking shit is why he did not get reelected. Even if you ask liberals, folks who strongly disagree with Trump, why they do not want him back in office, it has very little to do with any of his policies. It's all about whether it's January 6th or the tweets or running his mouth or something like that. So if you still have MAGA, and I make it clear I love my beloved MAGA folks, but if you still believe that Trump did not face any consequences at all for running his mouth, you are lost. I don't know what else to say about it. I've said before, even if you think the election was stolen from Trump, even if you believe that they stole the election from Trump, it's still because of his mouth. You don't see Democrats complaining about $2 gas or great jobs numbers or a 3.5 unemployment rate. They're bitching about his mouth. So whether they voted him out of office or they stole the election from him, it was for the same reason. They didn't like the guy. Period. They did not like the guy. So understand, if you are going to be in a position of power and you're insulting everyone and disrespecting everybody, believing that there should be no consequence to that, yeah, you're just not living in the real world. I don't know what else to say. All right, going back to the box. Unapologetic black man.
How this TikTok is rotating these folks, but let's try this out. Unapologetic. Good evening.
What's up, brother? What's up?
Nothing at all. Good to have you back. Happy holidays to you, my brother. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So, what do you think about the busing of immigrants in the middle of the frigid temperatures to the home of Kamala Harris?
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of parents want history to be truthfully taught in schools, because this isn't new. They did reverse busing in the South in the 50s and the 60s. This is just another political deploy for the minute people that Republican parties target, which are predominantly Caucasian people.
Well, real quick, hang on a second. Duke, I see you in the comments. TikTok, I got you next. But okay, when you say busing, though, I mean there is folks entering the country illegally. What do you suggest be done if hundreds of people are coming to the country, skipping the line, not doing things right? What should we do?
We should do like the Democrats, liberals, socialists, and/or you guys call communists say about the 328 ports in America, and Republicans want people to focus on 3. Think about that. There's 328 ports in America, and
Now, wait a
Republicans.
minute. I don't think you answered the question. Okay, if you got what they're suggesting, thousands of folks coming into the country without
Mhm.
documentation every day, what should be done about that?
We need to beefing up our port security. That's all 328, not the 3 that Republicans are telling us to focus on. We need to better enforce all of our ports, all of our border security, all of our border agents, even if that means more training, more equipment, more funding, instead of spending money on this busing. Which, let me ask you, Republicans in the comments, why are Republicans helping Democrats bus voters that you guys are claiming blue? Why is Republicans helping Democrats bus voters around America.
To make a point. They're doing it to make a point. They're doing it to embarrass Kamala Harris and the Biden administration. That's why they
And
would sit
they're
them in front of her house. So we know why
exactly
they're
that's
doing it, to make a
and
point.
they're embarrassing themselves because Republicans are, as they say, we're busing immigrants in front of Kamala Harris' house, and then what? The Republicans aren't updating their constituents about the hundreds of immigrants that they're busing around. They bust them for that political the photo ops, and then they give them no information afterwards. That's embarrassing.
Well, when you factor in that they want the immigrants either turned back at the border or, like in some cases, facing incarceration, they don't care that the immigrant is stranded. That's not of much concern anyway. They don't care nothing about the immigrant. That's the whole reason why they're sending them up with no clothes and food or anything. When you send
And
an immigrant to a sanctuary city without
yeah,
even making sure the city knows he's coming, you clearly don't give a shit about the immigrant. I mean, like they bust
right.
immigrants to Kamala Harris's house. She wasn't even home.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? Just stand out there in freezing cold weather in front of
No,
her? So
just like,
clearly they don't care about the immigrant. We get
yeah,
that.
they don't care, and they don't care about the after story either because, like I said, are they giving their constituents updates on these immigrants that are being bused like right now? Do you think those immigrants are still standing in front of Kamala Harris' house?
No,
No.
no.
They probably have been picked up. They have sheltered. Most of them have family members that already knew that they were coming, and they're coming to pick their family members up. So once again, Republicans are manufacturing fear, and they're leaving it right there. We bust them there in front of Kamala Harris' house. Laugh, Republicans. But then what else? Republicans aren't even asking these governors. They're not asking the South Abbott, like, okay, what about all these hundreds of people? Where are they now? Are these people employed now? Are they spending Christmas with their family right now? Are they still in our jobs right now? Again, that's what I mean. How and me, I'm like you. I try to play devil's advocate, but in this situation, I freaking can't. I can't
Yeah,
figure
it's
out
hard.
reasons
It's
why
hard. You
Republicans.
know,
Yeah, how are Republicans happy?
it's got multiple whammies to quote the TV game show, but multiple whammies such as not even making sure they have proper clothes and to do it on Christmas Eve just has a really bad ring to it. I mean, out of all of the days you're going to do this on Christmas Eve, you know, you throw religion in there and how bad it looks. I get the argument against the Democrats. I said in the broadcast many times, I do believe the Democrats are not doing well at the border. But to do this on Christmas Eve, knowing that you're sending them to a very cold area with no clothes, is there any possibility that come election time, the Hispanic community is going to remember this?
Oh, they if you look at every um, election, and if you listen to any of the Republicans, they know that the numbers are against them. That's why they always use Cubans and only Cuban numbers as the when they categorize Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, it's all about, oh, we getting a lot of the Cuban votes. And that's it. Because like they know Hispanics, Mexican, and that's another thing. Mexico aren't sending most of these people are coming from South America people.
I
Ecuador,
don't know
Brazil.
about that.
Majority of
Guatemala is not.
immigrants.
Is Guatemala South America or Nicaragua or Honduras? Is all that in
It
South America?
yes, that's not Mexico. That's what
No, it's
people
not
have to understand.
Mexico, but I think is that Central? Is that all South?
I mean, regardless if you go to South America, every country down there, that's where over 60
Yeah.
something percent of the immigration are coming from. People are making it seem like just below United States, Mexico. It's just like saying Canada, but then you don't want to mention European states that are coming through the ports. That's what, like, a lot of people do. And Canada brings in more immigrants than we do.
Well, Canada is not going to be in the conversation because, I mean, do we really have a significant issue with illegal immigrants coming from Canada? Is it really that many of them coming across the northern border?
No, it's not. That's why
Yeah.
the border between us only have, like, I think 1,000 something agents. They don't even care about the Canada border. That's why most of our drugs are being channeled through that way now. and our
You
border
believe
agents are
more
on.
drugs are coming across the northern border than the south?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of documentaries with smuggling and the cartel, they're outthinking our ports. Like one of our busy ports is L.A. Is L.A. port, right? If they see that megatons are being confiscated and being caught because of the upgraded system, then they're just going to go around it. Just like in Mexico, they upgraded to submarines because they
Yeah, but
know that.
here's the question I guess I'd ask because we know a lot of the drugs when it's up. I mean, the drugs are easier to produce in warmer climates like cocaine and marijuana and things like that. So if you're bringing it in from the north, that means you would have had to produce it somewhere south and go around and then enter Canada illegally with it, then cross. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, one more trip.
No, but
If
now you're
I can
entering
say
two countries illegally. Now you got to also enter Canada with the
with
drugs
less
illegally.
with less security, you have zero people in those mountains when you're bringing. The cartel knows that now that they're bringing mules down those mountains because there's less probability of
I
their
don't know.
merchandise being caught. I mean, you can look it up now. We are
I need to
pushing.
see
We are.
that. You're telling me
Yeah, you could.
more drugs enter America through the northern border. I need to see. I need to see some
No,
evidence
no,
of
no,
that.
no. I'm not saying more. I'm saying that a lot of cartels are diverting their smuggling and their mules to divert around our ports. Is That's why I mean that's what my whole point about is we need to beef up every single one of our ports. That way they can compare data and see where's a bulk of it coming from instead of trying to say let's focus on these three ports that we have been making
No, I
most
mean
of our
I
bus.
agree. You don't want to focus on a specific number of ports. I'm just saying that I think most of our problem in this country is coming across the southern border. There's obviously more than three ports between San Diego and wherever
Mhm.
the hell it ends in Texas. I get that point, El Paso or whatever, but no, it goes all the way across. No, what is it, Brownsville, the tip of Texas down there, but there's clearly more than three ports. But the point I'm saying is most of this stuff is coming from the southern border. You're telling me the northern border is competition for the south in any way at all?
No, oh, no, that's my whole point. The northern border is no competition because they're just sliding right down the mountains. They don't have anybody to stop them. That's what I mean. We're focusing on ports that we can just upgrade and pump money into and better those ports while we're leaving an entire. I mean, because I've been watching a lot of documentaries on it, and if you notice any cartel, any drug syndicate or gang syndicate, they find different ways of getting things into countries. And if through the mountains is an easy way and they notice that the government isn't paying attention to it, then
Wait,
so we
but the
won't either.
mountains in Idaho somewhere?
I mean, if you could bring anything from what's that, Seattle all the way to Wisconsin, you can literally take a boat from Wisconsin, the north
Yeah,
part of Wisconsin, right
that
into
is true.
Canada.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
And
I've been
and
up
they
there.
have
Yeah.
and they have been catching megatons of it coming from that way. It's the only thing I'm saying. We are letting um we are letting drugs and smuggling, and because that's another thing, human trafficking. If human trafficking wasn't a problem in the southern borders, they were a problem on our eastern and northern borders. And now again, the Republican Party, you
Whoa,
remember,
whoa, whoa, whoa. If
they
you
were
got a
pushing.
truckload of migrants, if you're smuggling in a truckload of migrants, which happens far more on the southern border, that is human trafficking. You're telling me human trafficking was not an issue on the southern border? When was
No,
that?
no, no, no. I'm saying that human trafficking was worse on the eastern border. If you remember, for almost 4 years straight, there were freights and freights of women being, they opened up freights and all the women were unalived in there because they stacking freights on top of each other and was closing their air. Because when they human traffic people from over Europe, they have air holes inside those freights. And for weeks, do y'all not remember? They were finding these freights were just piles of women inside them coming from over east, and these women weren't making it because they were closing up their air
Yeah.
holes through there.
I
And
think, I
it's
think,
still
and I think the issue is I got to move it on, but I think the issue is sheer numbers. When you talk about sending humans being trafficked on cargo ships and things like that, it's not the numbers of them is not going to compare with the images of what you see at the southern border. We're talking about thousands of people. You're not going to do that on a cargo ship very easy. So I think that's
and
where it
that's
is.
what I
I'm not
mean.
saying what you're saying is not true. I'm just saying the numbers of what's happening at the southern border is why it's getting more attention.
And again, it's getting more attention because, and I don't want to make it seem like that way, but let's be real. It's because of racism. Do you know how many parlors of Caucasian women that can't speak English, just like these Japanese massage parlors? Just these women are being trafficked over here by the millions, and we just gave up on them because they said focus on these three southern ports. Is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that the southern port isn't a problem. I'm just saying southern ports is not all our problems. We forgot that we are unsecure up north, and we forgot about the eastern ports that are being flooded by millions of trafficked women. We forgot all about that. That's
Okay,
what I
fair
mean.
enough.
I mean by the millions these women are being trafficked in here.
Okay, all right, fair enough, man. Come on back through anytime.
Always
Got
a
to move it
pleasure.
up. You too. All right.
And if what he's saying is true, I would love to. And Black Man, you see on my profile, I do have an email address. I would love to see that because when you talk about the Hispanics, the Mexicans, and folks that enter in the country, there are lots of. I guess you can. When you just look at the amount of Hispanics in this country, there's no denying that lots of them are immigrating here, whether illegally or otherwise. But if what he's saying is that millions of women are being trafficked here, I don't know. We should be hearing more about that if that is true. I have not heard it, but it should be. Even with Trump, I mean, I guess he's saying it's due to racism or whatever the case may be. But you should hear it. If there is that many of them being trafficked, he said millions. You should hear more about it. Looking in the comments, or better yet, the box. We'll go to Duke. Appreciate you holding on.
Good evening. What?
What's going, man? Thanks for having me on, man. Finally, my God.
Appreciate you holding on. So, and happy holidays to you. What do you think about Governor Abbott?
Man,
Governor Abbott busing immigrants to the home of Kamala Harris without telling Kamala Harris they don't have proper clothes on in 8-degree weather.
My bro here. Hey, welcome from the great state of Texas. I'm here in the great state of Texas. All right.
Nice. Okay,
Man,
so you right in, you in the trenches. You in it.
Down from mountains and air holes and crates, man. Okay, I get it. Let me tell you. Okay, look. Let me get to it. All right.
Real quick before you start, I'm gonna let you start. Tap the screen, folks. Get your boy up to 10,000 likes. Let me hear it, Duke.
All right. Here in the trenches, here in the great state of Texas. I don't know where the rest of them folks here are from. Okay, but here in Texas, okay, I'm in Houston, Texas. Okay. Houston, we have a problem with these immigrants. Okay, we understand that the folks up north don't seem that there was a problem, and Greg Abbott, our great governor here, he sent out the alarm a long time ago. Hey, we got a problem. There's a crisis at the border. And what was the response from Biden and the Democratic establishment?
Vice President.
All the Democrats said, ain't no problem. There's no crisis. So Greg Abbott had to make a statement. Not only Greg Abbott, Ducey from
Ron
Arizona,
DeSantis.
Ducey from Arizona, and DeSantis did busing. And it was an outcry. I didn't see this outcry when Joe Biden stopped over 20,000 Haitians and found 198 flights to fly Haitians back to their country. All of a sudden, busing is a bad thing. Okay?
Well, wait a minute.
Hold on. Let me
Let me respond to some of this. Let me respond to some of it. Hold on, hang on. You can't. If you talk too long, I'm going to forget some of the things you said. Let me respond to some of it. So you're saying that what Abbott did, sending them to Kamala Harris's house without even verifying she was there, improperly dressed in sub-freezing temperatures. You're saying he did the right thing.
Okay. Let's address the sub-freezing temperatures. When they got on the bus here in Texas, it was 10 degrees here. Okay, it was 10 degrees. Now, busing them to a cold or Washington D.C., I don't think it was the right thing to do. Okay, but they come here from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Guatemala, Africa, all over the world through this porous border we have down south. Okay, knowing that it's open, knowing that hey, they came with no jackets, no provisions. They did not even care. It was cold when they got here. Okay.
What if they didn't have them?
Hold on. But yes, it was wrong to send them up further north. But like the guy said, we can't get the attention of nobody in the Democratic Party. And notice there's no Democrats down here in the state of Texas complaining. Yes, send them up there because our constituents are saying, yeah, there's a problem. So you don't see Sheila Jackson Lee or none of the other Democrats screaming and hollering that was wrong. Yeah, send their butt on up there.
So the question I have to ask you is, what was the goal of what he was doing? You say to get attention. It's not like the Republicans haven't been screaming from the heavens that the Democrats are for open borders. It comes up in every single election, even at the midterms. So because at the end of the day, after Ron DeSantis sent folks to Martha's Vineyard, and now you got Abbott doing it as well. What is the actual goal? Because nothing is changing based on what they're doing other than the sentiment towards Republicans doing it, because here you are, a Republican supporter, even admitting it was wrong. So what is the goal of doing this?
The goal is to since all of you in New York, Philadelphia, all you sanctuary city states that said ain't no problem, since we can't get you Democrats because he's not listening to Republicans, we're gonna try to get the Democrats to sing the alarm to the Democratic Party in the establishment. Hey, we got a problem. New York has already said there's a crisis. We're calling a state of emergency. We can't handle no more migrants. Okay. In order to get Biden to see that there's a problem, Democrats have got to say it, because Republicans are saying it, and it's just we don't hear it. There ain't no problem. We don't see a problem. But if Democrats start to say, look, Joe, hey, there's a problem here, okay? Because the media first said, ain't no crisis at the border. Now the media is starting to say, look, there's a crisis. Have you noticed? ABC, NBC,
No,
CBS?
because I watch a hell of a lot of Fox News, and they've been saying every time there's a Democrat in office, they say that when Obama got in office, he was for open borders too. Now, for some reason, when George Bush said we need immigrants because they'll do jobs no Americans want, I didn't hear the same outcry.
False. Obama deported more people than Bush.
But that ain't what they said. Hold on. Let me give you Obama's spiel. When Obama was in office, they said he was for open borders. When Trump got in office and they started chastising him for separating families, they decided to say, well, actually, Obama was doing it too. But when Obama was in office, you can't compliment Obama and say, you know what? He is really enforcing the border and punishing folks who come here illegally. The Republicans could not give the man credit. They wanted to say he was for open borders. But all of a sudden now, when he's gone out of office, they have to retroactively go back in effort to defend Trump and say, he actually was separating the families.
You need to go back and look at Obama's speeches. Obama was not open borders. Obama was critically saying, look, we cannot just allow people to walk across our. I'm not Obama. I did not like Obama's policies. But one thing he was for was saying, look, we can't just allow. I challenge you to go back and look at Obama's speeches. Okay. He openly said we can't just allow people to come to this into this country. What country in the world can you just walk into, okay, without being vetted? This is insane. Look, the reason why, and I'm gonna tell you something. When people talk about these corporations, okay, and it's on my page, Duke Uncensored. You can look. I got video evidence, and I've gone to construction sites. Hispanics
Okay.
and everybody does quality work, okay, at jobs. These companies like Tyson and everybody is helping them to pay taxes. A lot of minorities is being pushed out the way for the for the Hispanic working. When I say Hispanic, I'm covering Honduras, I'm covering Central America, South America. They are not just working for low wages anymore. Please put this out. A lot of them are supervisors, a lot of them run HRs, a lot of them have their own businesses. They are getting top dollar now. They're not just migrants working in the fields for picking potatoes for $2 an hour. They are running around here buying new trucks, new homes, doing everything. And I'm looking at our people, and I'm saying, and I've got it on video on my page. Where are our people at? You know where our people at? Being pushed out the way because Javier and everybody is doing quality work. Who do you want to come build your house? Do you want a black contractor to come build your house? Or do you want Javier and his crew to come? They're going to come and build a quality home, multi-million-dollar home. They're going to cut your grass right. They're going to do everything right. This is the problem. This is part of the problem because these
So
companies
what would you recommend as a solution?
The solution is that we've got to have a proper vetting process at the border. The border has to be sealed. We're letting look. When 9/11 happened, we adamantly said, how did they get here? They came in through the southern border. Okay,
that's not true though. That's nothing from 9/11 came through the southern border.
You have to go back to the 9/11 reports. Evidently, you didn't read the 9/11 reports.
Okay.
Yes, the Saudis entered in through the porous border. Did you read the 9/11 reports?
Everybody in the comments is even saying that's not true. They didn't come in through the southern border.
Absolutely true. They didn't fly here on their own plane. They came in through the. Have anybody read the 9/11 reports? It's documented how they got here. It's documented.
Everybody is saying they came through Canada. So you saying they did not come through Canada?
They did not come through Canada. A lot of them came through. Maybe one came through Canada, but the majority of them came in through the porous border, and it was documented. Maybe the 9/11 report is lying. I don't know. I wasn't there. One thing about it, we don't have a problem with a bunch of people coming in through Canada. Do we have a problem with handsome liberal? Do we have a problem with a lot of people coming?
I don't think the problem of this northern, and I was disagreeing with my previous caller. I don't believe the issues we have at the northern border are as great as they are on the southern border by any means. No, I don't believe that. Now, which is why I told him, send me some information because, I mean, there's not a huge amount of Canadians in this country to begin with, even though we know now that you got a lot of folks south of Mexico that are coming in this country. We also have a hell of a lot of Mexicans that came in the same way. We don't have a lot of Canadians that came like that.
A lot of Saudis, a lot of Egyptians, a lot of people from Cubans, a lot of people coming in from different countries here. Listen, Greg Abbott is doing the right thing. Maybe the method is a little cruel for you people who are saying, oh my God, he sent them in frigid cold weather. They are crossing borders, losing their lives, trying to get here. Some are drowning. Some are being taken advantage of by cartels. Some are being unalived by their own people, sending children across by themselves. They are taking great risks coming from a long way away. Now, a lot of people in your comments.
How is Abbott and okay? When you're pointing out all the dangers that they're taking to get here, and you're saying that Abbott did the right thing, how is Abbott helping any of that out?
Because the resources here in Texas is out. We don't have no more places for them. Okay, can some of the sanctuary cities that say that they are okay with taking care of migrants? Can they take care of them? They got plenty of them.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room.
Well, I don't know if you realize it or not, but most illegal immigrants do not stop in Texas anyway. A lot of them continue.
Right.
I mean, there are illegal immigrants in all 50 states,
Right.
so they're not all trying to stay in Texas. Texas just happens to be geographically where they have to go through, but a lot of them aren't going to stay in Texas anyway.
Right. And I don't see what the problem is, because a lot of people are saying, "Hey, amigo, hey, I have friends up in Florida. You got a bus? Hey, we got a bus going to Florida. Would you like to go?" They're not being herded to buses. They're not being made to get on buses. They're asking these people.
But they're being lied to. When Governor DeSantis flew those migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, he told them that they were going to get stuff, and he didn't even verify if it was true. He was being completely dishonest. Now, if you're going to take somebody to a sanctuary city, I'm fine with saying they're going to a sanctuary city, but don't you think you should at least call ahead and make sure the shelter is open on Christmas Eve, and at least make sure the bus stops in front of a shelter?
No, because they didn't call ahead to come into the United States. They showed up. They showed up on our doorstep. Hey, Christmas Eve. If I just showed up on your doorstep, you're gonna send me off without calling wherever I'm going, right? Hey, look here. They showed up in Texas. Hey, surprise, we're here. Okay.
So you want them punished.
So we're gonna pass the surprise right along to y'all in New York who said, hey, there ain't no problem down there in Texas. See, the people up north think that they can't be touched. This is the problem. So Greg Abbott said,
what you're saying is because they didn't give any advance notice to Texas, dropping them off in the middle of the cold air, not even around the shelter. Hey, you just passing it on is what you're saying, right?
Are we obligated to do so?
No, you're not. But you do realize how heartless that sounds, right?
Hey, was it heartless to send Haitians back to their country that was downturned?
That's not, but pointing to other bad behavior is not going to excuse your own.
Hey, Joe Biden looked at him and said, hey, thanks for coming, but we got some airplanes to send you right back to where you came from. Now all of a sudden it's a problem when we're saying, hey, we're going to send you on into the United States. We didn't send them back to their country like Joe Biden did. We send them on into the United States. What's the problem? Right. You want them to be here.
All right, Duke. I got to move it on, man. Always
Texas
a pleasure.
All the way, baby. We're Lone Star State. We going to stay.
Good luck.
Love you, bro.
All right, always a good talk. Now,
what I wanted pointing out to you guys is that, look, there is no shortage. This is a MAGA-friendly program, so MAGA is always welcome. That's the preferred guest. So there's no shortage of folks that agree with what Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis has done, such as my last caller, Duke, and Duke is always welcome back on the program. But I will submit to you guys that come election time, in fact, I'll give you a historical statement. When the Civil Rights Act was passed for African Americans, there is a rumor that a politician said we are going to have black people voting Democrat for the next 100 years. And if you look with the Civil Rights Act being passed in 1964, that's kind of what has been happening. Since the Civil Rights Act, African Americans have overwhelmingly been voting Democrat. I would submit to you that if the Republicans keep doing this, looking harsh, making statements like what my previous caller was saying, you may also find yourself securing the Hispanic vote for Democrats for the next several generations. Even if you are just simply pissed off that people are being allowed to enter this country, the strain it's putting on states like Texas and Arizona, and there's a lot of legitimate complaints that can be lodged at the president for the border. I get it. But the inhumane and cruelty of what's being done as a result, come election time, this is going to come up. I'll be curious to see how many immigrants that came in from the southern border, that maybe they're second, third generation immigrants, that believe that what the Republicans are doing, busting these people in the middle of the night without even verifying the resources, I'd be curious to see how many of them think this is a good thing to do. I'm talking about maybe the Hispanic that was born here, but their parents came here across the border, legally or illegally. I'd be curious to see, because they're voters. These are Hispanic voters. I'd be curious to see how many of them believe that what the Republicans are doing in outrage to Biden's mishandling of the border is the correct thing to do. Because otherwise, yeah, you could be securing the Democratic vote for Hispanics for a long time. Two, okay, this is, my name is...
Your last guest thinks Saudis are going past 300 forks to go south.
What's going on, handsome liberal?
Good evening.
What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, New Year's, and all that good shit. What do you think about the busing of immigrants?
I mean, I think that it's Greg Abbott would have been much better if he would go about putting forth real policies that could make differences at the border instead of pulling ridiculous stunts. But you can see how pro-life they really are, right?
Yeah, but do you think the Democratic administration is going to listen to any policy that Greg Abbott's? I mean, he's going to suggest
why not, right? Yeah, sure, especially one that advocates for unity, right? Joe Biden would actually do very well to work with Abbott and show that he can work with a Republican, because that was his whole thing to get into office in the first place, right? We're getting very broad blanket statements in chat. Like, now, keep in mind, I'm not a Democrat, but there are definitely Democrats who care about immigrants. There are Republicans who care about immigrants. But one thing I do want to address is this: a sanctuary city is a city that keeps local resources for local problems. That's what a sanctuary city means, okay? It's not a city that says, hey, we're willing to take endless immigrants at any time. That's not what a sanctuary city is, folks. Okay, I want to ask Republicans a question real quick. Why would I assign a bunch of my local resources in my city to hunting down immigrants when it's not a problem here? Right? That's stupid. That you need to do that on a federal level, right? That's what federal tax dollars are for, not my local state tax dollars. Sanctuary cities use local resources to solve local problems. That's what a sanctuary city is.
Yeah, but how do you respond? Like in the comments, Back 57 is saying, but the Biden administration said there's no crisis at the border. So what do you do when you're talking to an administration who is refusing to even admit there's a problem existing?
Sure, I use that to my advantage, right? I put forth policies that could actually resolve issues. And when the Democrats don't go along with that, I then advertise that as loud as possible as I can, showing, hey, we had these policies right here. And if we do this, it will do X, Y, Z at the border. And it will help with our problem. And Biden won't. That'll get you votes.
Yeah, but they've already done it. We know what the Republican policies are.
What policies have they put forth? So tell me what policies they put forth.
I'm telling you.
So that's ridiculous, right?
They want folks who come in the country to be incarcerated. They want you to build a wall, potentially some form of a prison sentence. That's their policy.
Let me rephrase then. When they come with reasonable ideas that could actually work, then we would listen to them, right? If you said something like, we need more immigration judges and we need more immigration courts so that we can process these people through the system faster, I would actually go along with that, because that's not a total numbskull idea, right?
Yeah. Well, they don't want more immigration judges because they want you just to be turned around.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Well, you have to have a flow of immigration in and out of the country. Our workforce depends on it. And I will say to the last person with the replacement theory that immigrants are coming for your jobs, right? I would take a page out of your capitalist book and say, if someone jumping the border from Honduras can take your job, you need to make yourself more marketable, according to capitalism, okay? Maybe you're not marketable enough. Maybe you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go to school and make yourself more marketable.
That sounds remotely familiar for some reason.
If Greg Abbott wasn't such a numbnuts, he would come up with real policies that could actually help, and then he would talk on national TV about it, and then he would say, look, the Democrats aren't going along, and reasonable. See, because normal people, normal voters, they know a normal policy when they hear it. When you're saying, build a wall, the typical reasonable voter isn't going to vote for that. because
I
it's
don't know about that. Trump got 74 million votes and they all wanted to wall. What about Team Save America in the comments is talking about the stay in Mexico policy that Trump had? How do you
Mhm.
feel about that as opposed to letting folks, file for asylum on our border, on our land, that you got to do everything from Mexico? Do you see any? Because that's what the Republicans want, is a stay in Mexico or remain in Mexico policy, that if you want to file for asylum or anything of that nature, you got to do it from your home country first.
I mean, it sounds like you're going to be dependent on countries that are in a state of total disarray and have people fleeing. So I don't see how that's even possible. That doesn't even sound like a reasonable idea to me. How are you going to engineer such regulation when you have countries with huge cartels that are massacring people and that's why they're leaving? So that doesn't seem feasible to me. You know what also I'll say is I haven't heard one Republican come up on here and blame the capitalist assholes that are hiring these illegal immigrants. Where are you guys with the responsibility for the corporations that are giving these people the opportunity that they're coming here for? I don't see any of you blaming your precious corporations that are hiring all these people and giving them the opportunities that they're coming here for. Is there any accountability for the capitalists? Or no,
Yeah,
they don't get it, right?
I've actually raised that point numerous times, is that every individual in this country that hires an illegal is a co-conspirator in the problem. And we know the Tyson Foods, Walmart has a history of doing it. Every hotel and construction company that we know of, there's plenty. It's not like people do not know where illegal immigrants mainly work. Lawn care companies, I mean, I hate to be stereotypical, but there is a stereotype of business. You know the types of businesses. You go to a factory and nobody there speaks English. I mean, we know we've turned a blind eye to it.
Sure, sure. And that's purposeful. Why does that happen? Because the capitalists make money from it, right? I can put more money in my pocket if I hire cheap labor. So, yeah, let's set up this system and bring these people in and give them these opportunities, but let's demonize them at the same time. Let's demonize them while we do that, while we take advantage of them, while we exploit them, right? We'll demonize them at the same time. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the reason we don't listen to you Republicans is because honestly, your ideas suck. Your ideas are awful. They're so bad. I would listen to you if you had a clue about anything. Seriously.
I can't dispel all of their arguments. I don't, because like I said, I don't believe Biden is doing a good job at the border. So I'm willing to entertain other
I don't
theories.
believe Biden's doing a good job at I don't believe any Republican or Democrat has done a good job with the border in recent history.
Yeah. Well, I think the answer is exactly what you talked about that I brought up, is that we speak with forked tongue, as some folks would say. We're giving it lip service. We can preach come election time that we want to do more to control the border, but behind the scenes, as you mentioned, with capitalism, corporate donors and things like that, they want the labor. And
I
which is
want
why even with Trump, as adamant as Trump was, and he was more adamant about securing the border than any president in our lifetime, you didn't even hear him talking about going after Americans that hire illegals. So
yeah.
even he was only giving it lip service to some degree.
And I didn't even want to really bring up Trump that much, but I have to address something I saw in your comments, man. Because people often, well, Trump on the border, Trump hires illegals, man. And you guys are in denial of that too. Okay? You won't even sit here and hold him accountable for hiring the illegals at his hotels. Okay? He does it too, man. You guys don't really care. You don't care.
Well, I
I'll
don't
hold
know for
anybody
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that for a fact. But when you look at the fact that the guy did own hotels and construction, he dealt with a lot of construction and things like that. The chances of him actually employing illegals is probably pretty high. I
Yeah.
mean, he was in the businesses that they work in.
It's a fact that he hired illegals, and I will hold anyone to account that's hiring illegals. I don't care who it is, but you guys won't. And it's always this double standard with you guys. I heard someone mention Al Franken in the comments earlier. Democrats even go after their own and hold them accountable a
That's what
lot of
that was
times.
for. I had when Duke came on, I think it was Duke. He was asking, do Democrats go after their own? And I was going to say Al Franken, or what is the guy, Anthony Weiner. There's a host of Democrats. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York. The Democrats do go after their own. I could name a host of people, but he was throwing so much out there, I didn't get a chance to go after that particular point.
And I will tell you guys this, man. We shouldn't have let Al Franken go. We should have told you guys to go pound sand on that one, man. Honestly, Al Franken should have just stuck the middle finger up at you guys on that one, man. Because people liked him in his state. He was a good politician. He's a good man. And he should have told you guys to go pound sand on all that. He should have stayed in office.
Well, but you want to set a precedent. If you got Democrats complaining that the Republicans are willing to overlook anything Trump does, you can't make that complaint while doing the exact same thing. It's very similar to the complaint one of my callers made that, Obama, or not Obama, but rather Biden was sending immigrants places in the middle of the night, and Ron DeSantis complained about it. But then Ron DeSantis did the same thing. Then you negate any complaint you can make if you're doing the same thing too.
I don't agree. I think that there are different degrees of evil. And I think that the degree of evil that Al Franken performed, if you can even call it evil, is far lesser than anything Trump ever did.
Al Franken took a picture like he was trying to grab a woman on her breast or something like that. It was mild by today's standards for sure.
Yeah, she was in on it anyway. She was part of the joke. Yeah. It was a joke.
It was good. By today's standards, that wasn't shit. But at the time, it was. But keep in mind too, though, the Republicans have never been really hard like that. It's always been the Democrats with the Me Too movement, the cancel culture, and things like that. So unfortunately, Al Franken was a victim of liberal mindset. That's what we do.
Yeah, so, you're right about that. But I will say that there are lots of situations that you can compare and contrast. You have to understand that there are degrees with everything. There are degrees, okay? It's not absolute, right? And there is no one idea to solve the border crisis. It's going to take a multitude of different policies and ideas to fix the problem. There is definitely a problem. And I think Democrats acknowledge that. But you also guys need to understand that Biden is a corporatist, and he's taking corporate money from the people who hire these immigrants. So for him, and Trump did too. So for them to actually do a whole lot about it is highly unlikely, guys. It's highly unlikely.
All right. I got to move it on, kid. And I appreciate you coming through, man. Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
You too, man. Happy New Year.
Hey, you too. All right.
I certainly agree with the last caller in suggesting that there is so many campaign contributions coming in and lobbyists that are benefiting from the labor of illegal immigrants that at the end of the day, a lot of it is lip service. And I said this when Trump was in office. I was telling folks that who were saying that Trump is going to secure the border. I was telling folks then that Reagan gave 80-some thousand illegals amnesty, and then, of course, George W. Bush is known for saying they'll do jobs no Americans want. So I was telling folks, you may get some border security while Trump is in office, but just looking at history, the minute he's gone, his provisions are going to be wiped out because it's pretty clear folks on the right and the left benefit from the labor of these folks, and they're going to open up the floodgates and let it happen. You could build, let's say you got a daughter in your house that she sneaks in boyfriends in the middle of the night. You don't like this shit. So you build a wall around your house so they can't get in. That wall is useless if she gets up in the middle of the night and opens the door and let them in. And that is the problem folks do not want to admit, is that the illegal immigration problem in this country is an inside job. They are not here on their own. They are here at the behest of a hell of a lot of American co-conspirators. Until you get rid of the American co-conspirators and start locking up Americans that are involved in this, you're giving it lip service. You're really just giving it lip service. It's not going to go away. I said earlier in the broadcast, you need to make Mexico a more desirable country for them to remain. Now, clearly they're not all coming from Mexico, but they're all coming through it. So if Mexico began being at least a more developed country, then a lot of them fleeing to Honduras and Guatemala and places like that would find Mexico worthy of staying in. We spent a ton of money in this country undermining jobs, building call centers in China, building call centers in the Philippines, Vietnam. That shit should have been built in Mexico because the Chinese are not even our allies. If we had pumped all of that money into cheap labor in Mexico as opposed to China, Mexico would be a better country, which China is now. China's doing far better financially because we tried to undermine American labor and built a hell of a lot of call centers and manufacturing plants in China. That should have been done in Mexico. That would have made Mexico a better country for its people, and they wouldn't be trying to get here. Going back to the box, it is 228 Chris. So
say, by the way, tap the screen, get you up to 20,000 likes. Let your thumbs not be lazy. It's a little MAGA friendly program. I don't ban block or censor. Good evening, Chris.
Good afternoon, Tim. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Good to have you back. So, what do you think about Texas Governor Abbott busing immigrants to the home of Kamala Harris when she's not even home, improperly clothed in sub-freezing temperatures?
I don't think that's a good idea. I think the general busing idea was a good policy. It definitely brought a lot of attention to the problem that we seem to have here in Texas and stuff like that. I'm I tend to vote Republican, but I'll vote towards what I believe, and that's that as far as our immigration issues, the first step needs to be that we lock down immigration to where as close to 100% of people coming into the country, whether it be southern border, northern border, overstay visas, whatever, that we at least know who all these people are.
Well,
So that
let me ask you this question because, like you said, you tend to vote Republican, and if you believe the border is secure, it's safe to assume you agree with Trump's policies on the border, right?
as far as having a border wall and at least
Yeah,
limiting the number of people that come in that we have no idea they're here,
right.
absolutely.
So, you give me your humble opinion, and it really doesn't matter what you say. I'm going to let you say it, but I just want to. I'm curious. Why do you think Trump, who is, even in my opinion, the strongest border control advocate that we've ever had in recent memory, why didn't he go after any Americans that were literally violating U.S. border laws? I mean, whether it's a factory that hires a bunch of immigrants or a meat packing plant, we all know about these places. Why is it that Trump never made any noise about this?
I mean, I'm not Trump, so I can't say why. I have no answer for that, to be honest with you. But if I can continue though, like step
Sure.
step one, in my opinion, should be locking down immigration to where we know everybody that's here. Step two would be giving a length of time, whether it's 6 months or a year, for everybody that's here undocumented to come forward. Let us know who you are. Let us get you make sure you have tax ID. Make sure you have you know medical availability, all that kind of stuff. And then step three is for everybody that passed that process and that it turns out okay, you're not some crazy criminal or drug dealer or anything like that. Create a pathway to citizenship for them.
Yeah. Well, just want to say real quick in the comments, in regards to the question I asked you about Trump not going, FJB in Chicago said because you Democrats would have ripped him in the news. Is there any evidence viewing Trump while he was in office for 4 years that he ever gave a shit about Democrats ripping him in the news? Seriously? You're telling me that Trump did not do something because of fear of being ripped by the Democrat? Is there anybody who believes Trump led his administration with concern over how the Democrats viewed him? That makes no sense.
I
What do you think about that, Chris?
I don't think Trump cared what anybody thought about him. I mean,
Right.
I think that he is a narcissist, at least to the degree that most everybody that seeks that much power is, and that he thought his way was the only way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you know something, I've said before, with Trump being a successful businessman, you know, in a business, you can fire the board if they don't agree with you. You know, you can, if you believe your way is the right way and it's your business, you can make sure that that's the way being used. When you come to politics, however, you got to work with Congress and the Senate, as folks like John McCain proved when he tried to repeal and replace Obamacare, is that you can't just run people over. And I think that he lost his way in the notion that in politics, the people don't work for you, you work for the people. And in business, the people work for you. And I think that's where he lost his way, is that he didn't realize you're beholden to us. It's not the other way around.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're in the middle of a battle, you know, between two different, you know, on two different sides of the field, if you make enemies on both sides, then you're not going to fare too well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that obviously was a problem. I have no clue to this day why he thought it would be a smart idea to just come into power making enemies all over the place. I've said it before, even if you went to a factory and you knew your shit and you told the owner of the factory, bring me in, I'll help you drain the swamp, I'll start naming names and pointing out lazy managers and things like that. You'd have to realize if you get hired there, nobody's going to work with you. All the other co-managers going to hate your ass. I don't know how anybody would think they're going to go to Washington under the guise that they're going to drain the swamp and name names and all that, and actually get some serious participation in their policies. It just seems like a recipe for failure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't make sense because, you know, obviously, you know, Democrats and Republicans, at least, you know, to the media and to the public, they're going to show that they're fighting against each other. But
Yeah.
to create infighting within the own party that you're representing is definitely a problem.
But why do Republicans love this so much, though? I mean, when he came in creating that infighting, whether it was Pocahontas or Marco Rubio's hands, the Republicans went apeshit. They really enjoyed that. Why do you think they enjoyed that so much? I mean, you lean right. What did you not see that might have been harmful when he was rising to power?
To be honest, I didn't know. I don't know anything about the Marco Rubio hands or the.
What
I know
about Mitt Romney
the
getting on his
Pocahontas.
knees? What about Mitt Romney getting on his knees, or John McCain? You didn't see him attacking any right wingers.
Uh, I guess I wasn't watching the right stuff. No, I can't say I've seen any
Okay.
of those.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. But no, he came to power attacking a host of right wingers as well. I mean, he said things about the Bush family, the Reagan family. I mean, literally every single Republican politician that is alive, or every Republican politician that won the Republican ticket, and that would be the Reagan family, the Bush family, the Romneys, the McCains. He attacked all of those people. All of those people, most of them before he even got elected. So, I mean, that's all the upper echelon of the Republican Party. None are friends with him as of now. None of those families or none of those politicians that are still alive are friends with Trump. But anyway, looks like my last caller dropped out. Looking in the comments, there's some right wingers that need that as a wake up call. Dread Knight, not all of them, no. Do you think every single right winger needs an insulting nickname as a wake up call? I mean, since Trump has come on the picture, I guess it would probably be easier to ask the question, which is, which ones of the Republican politicians since Trump has come on the picture are not rhinos? I was going to ask which ones have become rhinos because Trump called them that, but I guess it would be more curious to ask which ones are not. I think that the MAGA folks you guys refer to almost every Republican as a rhino now. From Mitch McConnell on down, like every single one of them is often called a rhino. Just because Trump came on the picture. And I've told you before that it is Trump who is the rhino. Just like Bernie Sanders ran as a Democrat, he's not a Democrat. He ran as a Democrat to get access to the Democratic DNC funds that you need to run. Trump did the same thing to get access to the RNC funds, but Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat.
Trump is not a Republican. And if the proof is in the pudding, Bernie Sanders has a hell of a lot of problems with traditional Democrats in his party, and Trump has a hell of a lot of problems with traditional Republicans in his party because they are not members of that party. But for some reason, when Trump came on the scene, instead of pointing out that Trump is not a traditional Republican, you started calling all the Republicans rhinos. That didn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. But we'll go back to the box and we'll bring up did I see Hillary in there? Oh,
To bring that person up if so. Authentically becoming.
Hello. Good
Hey,
evening.
welcome back.
Welcome.
Talking about busing migrants to the home of Kamala Harris, sub freezing temperatures, improperly dressed. You think that was the right thing to do?
I think that it's what politicians do when they want attention to be placed in a direction that makes them look like they're doing something that can get the crowd riled up for another episode in the saga of America.
You believe that what DeSantis and what Abbott is doing with the immigrants is doing that to gin up their base?
It's not right for the person that was asking me that. But yes, it's all in support of it's just like any other entertainment show. You got to figure out what's the next way you're going to get a dopamine rush or some type of thrill out of your base.
Yeah, but so you're suggesting that for what he did, the Republican Party supports doing that to those people?
I don't think there is such a thing as considering a Republican Party or a Democrat Party in the names that we keep trying to call them nowadays. I think that a lot of us are stuck in the mindsets of, I'm not a little girl, I'm a veteran. And yes, I live in Texas. So I need you to learn, have some respect. But let me give you this real quick. There's no such thing as a Democrat or a Republican in the same sense that we're used to from back in the day. We've got nowadays so much going on in social media and different ways and avenues that people are trying to make their money, including the crypto guy that flew first class and not private jet anymore. That what we're looking at now is what will stick in the minds of voters long enough for them to want to go to the polls and vote for you. Unfortunately,
So okay,
there are
let's
people who
go
are
with
going to
that.
like that.
So let me ask. So you tend to lean politically left, right?
I do.
Give me a letter grade, A, B, C, D, or F, if you had to grade the border under the Biden administration.
I would probably go ahead and give it a D, but I would
Pretty
also
bad.
give it a
Okay.
D under the Republican side too, if we want to be fair. I
So
don't
you
think
don't
that,
believe Trump was doing any better at the border than Biden?
no. I think what we really need to do is just create a fast track type of system. I know this wasn't your question, where we go ahead and we make them American citizens and we start collecting taxes and have them contributing to our social security and everything else like the rest of us who are out here working do.
Yeah, but the problem, what about the notion that if you bring in more people, you would dilute the salaries for jobs of folks who are here because now you're increasing the pool so that employers got so many more people to pick from.
They already are. They're just not paying their rightful amount of taxes and they're potentially making lower wages. But at the same stance, we're getting circles screwed, how I properly put it for TikTok, regardless, because they're making the money, taking it back home. And we're not getting a dime of it back here other than what they contribute for food and water and shelter. If even that, because they may have relatives that are housing them that take care of those needs for them. We're not getting any taxes. We're not getting accountability for them. If anything happens to them, we're paying for it, but we're not getting any type of long-term investment out of them.
So should there be any limit to the amount of immigrants that can come here? You said fast track it.
Even if we're looking at the idea of trying to create a limit, I think the idea is just like when we're filing for student loan aid, you're going to have your phases. You're going to have your priority statuses. You're going to have certain people. If you're a student here and you can't go and get a job outside of campus, then you're basically living here and not contributing to our environment legally. If you need extra money, you may be going out and getting a job at a restaurant as a server or a cook or something, but you're not paying taxes on that money. I'm paying taxes on that money whenever I have a
Yeah,
job.
I get the taxes argument, but it almost sounds like you're kind of for open borders in a way. It's not completely open, but you're making it so it's a it's a thoroughfare. You're making it so it's pretty easy to get in the country.
I would say at this point, it's already easy to get in the country. We may as well go ahead and put a spotlight on it and be aware of it instead of this behind the scenes stuff where we find people that are in trucks that are dead. Don't think I forgot that in San Antonio. 50 people died because there was no AC for them in the back of that truck. That's inhumane behavior. If we want to look at all the differences, if we want to look at one side of it as well, it's not a good idea to bust them up into Kamala's area without coats on. It's also not a good idea for them to be in trucks. So why not put a spotlight? Yes, the world has problems. Yes, they come to America for refuge. Yes, you know what? We will give them jobs, the jobs that most Americans don't want to take. And at the end of the day, let's go ahead and start creating systems where we're actually benefiting as a country off of them taking money and putting it into the wallets of their houses.
So now in the comments, Arletha brings up overpopulation causes
Thank you
diseases
for the
and famine.
coins.
Huh?
Somebody gave me coins. I just wanted to thank them.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned that in the comments, Arletha mentioned overpopulation causing diseases and famine. Could what you're suggesting, could it lead to our cities in locations in this country becoming very densely populated? Because now you're talking about taking in a lot of people.
That's just it. We're already dense. Look at California. Look, even for, let's say, right here in Austin and Dallas and all these other places, we've got people that are homeless, that are standing outside on corners right now
Yeah,
already.
but if we implement your methods, even with as many people that are coming here now, if we implement the methods you're suggesting, that number is going to go up.
The number is going to go up one way or another, but I would rather it go up and we have accountability for these people. We take fingerprinting, we take DNA samples. We know that they know where their children are at the end of the day, that we actually have the availability to say, hey, maybe we need to create a refuge city for these people in a sense. Maybe we need to go ahead and create a situation where at the end of the day, if we are going to have people coming into this country, that we don't have them doing crimes where we're not figuring out exactly what's happening, that we can have accountability for it at the end of the day. That's the other
So
thing.
I have to ask you the question. Miss Mobetta in the comments is that then who's going to pay for this? Because you know that's going to come up.
Well, that's just it. We're already paying for it. We're just not talking about it.
Their own city. You talked about a refuge city. They're going to give them. You're going to give them their own town in our country.
We're already
You get
busing them
how
to
this
Martha's
sounds?
Vineyard. We're already busing them to Martha's Vineyard into Kamala's
Yeah,
house. Come on now. We're not sending
I
them
don't know.
right
I
back
don't.
in.
That's a real progressive strategy you got. I don't know if I can go that far to the left. That's really progressive.
I'm
I mean,
just
if you
saying, if we're going to have people coming here, we're paying for it. But at the end of the day, we're not taking accountability for what we're paying for. If I've got people working in all these different buildings and they're making money and sending it back home, I can't send a Venmo to you without having to potentially pay taxes on it next year. But these people are taking that money and sending it back to Mexico and not paying taxes on it. They're not contributing to
yeah,
Medicare. They're not contributing to the entire population that's aging in America, that's going to continue to age because we're living longer.
yeah. Here's one that's funny. I guess I'll run this by. I think it's kind of funny. Him 3H in the comments said, "Why not just annex Mexico? Since you're going to send us so many of your damn citizens, why don't we just take over
I mean, we
take over
could,
your
if I'm
country?"
joking at this point, but I'm just saying, like, they've got tequila, they've got the beaches. Like, I mean, we're running
You
out of
know
places
something
for nice
though.
houses here, anyways.
You know something? I said earlier in this broadcast, though, we probably do need to get more involved in Mexican politics. If we can go to Afghanistan and fight for women to be able to drive cars and be educated. If we could make Mexico a better country for Mexicans, it would greatly reduce this problem. They don't want to leave their homeland and their culture to come here. They're doing it out of desperation. So if we can make their country better for them, yeah, I do believe, I don't want to say annex it and take it over and no shit like that, but you could do airstrikes on cartels and poppy fields and cocaine fields and things. I mean, you could do things if we really wanted, because obviously we're making a lot of money from the cartels ourselves. There are plenty of politicians in this country that are making a fortune off the drug trade. But if we wanted to do it morally, we could hurt the cartels significantly from the air because all of those fields and things like we know where that stuff is at.
Exactly. And the thing about it, though, is like you were saying earlier, and what I will say, America, just like every country, is a business. Every country is dealing with some type of border crisis, allegedly. But at the end of the day, you know what that does for politicians? It gives them something that they can have in the minds of every voter
That is
when
true.
they get ready to go to the polls. It gives them something that they can showcase, like the children covered in foil in cages, or the people at the bridge in nothing but bare feet in water trying to figure their way to another place.
Yeah.
At the end of the
I
day,
don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. But before I gotta move it on, but before I let you
yeah,
go, I have to ask. I have to ask the question that comes up oftentimes. Do you think any of the outcry to what's going on at the southern border has anything to do with racism at all?
absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. If we had this coming from Canada, we'd be excited as all could be. We would love to have Canadians come over to our country. We would be
Mm,
super excited to have them come over with all their little education and their kindness. We put stereotypes and biases, and then we play into them for what we think is going to work for us. And if you think
yeah,
about it, we already have issues with the legal immigrants that come here as well. Because anytime you see legal immigrants that come here and they take jobs that are tech jobs or this or that, we have issues with that too. Because America likes to
that
say
is.
that it's a
Yeah.
melting pot, but it's a biased melting pot.
Yeah. And something there is validity to that because yeah, even when you look at folks coming from the nation of India, they come here legally and yeah, they take a lot of the upper echelon jobs in the medical field, engineering. They take a lot of those higher jobs as well. And once again, the Indian immigrants that work in those higher paying jobs get paid less.
Yeah,
So it's a lot of capitalist greed involved in why this stuff is happening. But I
yeah.
gotta move it on, authentic.
Yep, I will just
Always a
say this
pleasure.
one thing here because John said something. I don't have an issue with legal immigrants, but I do want to say that it is an issue where we will find people treat people differently based on whether or not they have an accent or not. So it's an American issue. But I do hope that you have a wonderful rest of your show. I enjoy watching you, even if I don't get in a box. So thank you for just
Absolutely.
being awesome.
Oh, damn. Okay. You have a good holiday. I appreciate the compliment, and you're always welcome back, authentic. Come
Thank
on
you.
back through. All right. Looking.
In the comments, FJ, what is it? FJB, he's doing this on purpose. What am I doing on purpose? Come on, we're asking a question. And for you guys who are tuning in now, by the way, tap the screen, get your boy up to 20,000 likes. Let your thumbs not be lazy. I'll give you my spiel real quick that I give on every program. This is a MAGA friendly broadcast. I've had some liberals on today, but make no mistake about it, MAGA are my preferred guests because I do not ban, censor, or block anyone for their commentary. So understand that despite the name of the program, you don't have to fear any sort of censorship when you come on the program and state your point. But what are we talking about today?
Now to the latest on the crisis at the border. A group of migrants was dropped off right outside Vice President Kamala Harris's home on Christmas Eve. No one was there to greet the asylum seekers as they arrived in sub-freezing temps. Local organizations picked up the migrants, took them to shelters and churches. It's not known who sent the migrants to VP Harris's house.
We do know now. That was an older story, but we do know now it was Governor Abbott. Now, I understand a lot of folks on the right believe that the message needed to be sent, and we can debate that. I'm not a fan of what he did at all, but if you want to suggest that Biden was not doing enough at the border, which I do agree with, and a message needed to be sent, we can debate that. But on Christmas Eve, in freezing temperatures, knowing that they were not properly clothed and dropping them off in front of a home that no one was in makes no sense at all. You can do everything you want to do in regards to sending a message without doing it that way. So I don't get the bah humbug portion of it by sending them there on Christmas Eve. That just seems cruel. Certainly in sub-freezing temperatures without the proper clothing on. To me, that part of it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you can get the message out and go overboard, because I strongly believe what Governor Abbott did in the manner that he did it was cruel enough that his actual message was lost. I just believe that. And in my opinion, he probably scored a few votes for Democrats, because it does come across as looking like Republicans don't give a shit about you if you come in the country the wrong way, up to and including loss of life. Going to the box, Jay Schmo.
Choke. Good evening. Happy holidays, Jay.
How are you this evening, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Are you on Bluetooth? You got an echo there.
What's that? I got an echo?
You're not on Bluetooth, are you?
No.
Okay. All right. I can hear you go. So what do you think about the busing of immigrants that Governor Abbott was involved in? You think that was the right thing to do?
Oh, I don't know if it was the right thing to do. But like you said earlier, it's a message. And, that's what he's doing, is sending a message. And as far, it's probably not the best thing to do. But did they ultimately get help? And so I think that's a good thing.
To me, it's like if you live next door to me and you dump your garbage in a way that some of it blows on my lawn. So I pick up one of the old beer bottles from your garbage that blew on my lawn and throw it through your front picture window to tell you to stop throwing garbage on my lawn. I think the message you deliver is so awful that the message itself is lost. I mean, because once you bust out the guy's window, whatever you're trying to tell him is going to be lost. Once you start busting immigrants, without clothes in a sub-freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve, the actual goal of your message, I believe, is lost.
Well, I think it's how you view it. If the people were coming from somewhere for amnesty because it's so bad there, a few hours, they already spent how much time in the desert suffering to get there. So a few more hours, and now they've got better conditions than they were living in before.
You're admitting they came through life-risking conditions in the desert. So because they were able to endure those type of dangerous conditions in the desert, they should be able to survive a few more hours of life-endangering conditions in the Northeast. So what does that say about the guy who deliberately put them right back into life-endangering conditions? Is that saying that you don't care about me at all, that you're willing to tell me, well, you can survive a few more hours?
No, he's sending a message to the president and vice president, administration.
Yeah.
And people are used as pawns in that. I mean, people are used in pawns in politics every day of our lives.
Yeah, but what message is he sending to the immigrants? Even though they're here illegally, what are the immigrants supposed to think of the governor that did that to them?
Well, we don't know. Have we asked them?
What would you think? If you endured the harsh, if you personally was trying to get to a country and you endured the harsh conditions of the desert, which, as you admit, are life-threatening, and then you had a governor bust you somewhere else and tell you, well, if you survive the desert, you can survive a few more hours than this. What would you think of the governor telling you that?
Well, if the governor was telling me that, and I had no choice, I'd be happy with it. That's a choice I made when I come to this country.
Yeah, but there's no indication at all that you had no choice. There's no indication that the governor did what he had to do. You and I had realized that he was only doing it to deliver a message. He did. Yes. That was an optional stress he put them through. So if you are the immigrant that he deliberately told you could survive another few hours of life-threatening conditions, and it's optional. I'm just doing this because I want to do it to deliver a message. How would you think of them?
I'm not in that situation, so I don't know. I would think that I don't know. I don't know what they think, but as a citizen of the United States, how about we get the president and the vice president to go down and pay attention and see what's really going on there instead of pretending?
Yeah,
And
I don't
sometimes,
disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree that the president and the vice president Kamala Harris are doing a great job at the border. I get that. But deliberately telling someone you should be able to survive a few more hours of harsh conditions on purpose, I don't see I don't see how that benefits anyone. That's the point I'm trying to make.
well, it keeps it in the media, keeps people pressure on the administration, doesn't it? More we talk about it in the media.
I do agree it keeps it in the media, but now you got the media talking about this guy said they can survive a few more hours of life-threatening conditions on Christmas Eve. I don't know if that's really good to be in the media for Republicans.
Well, it's the narrative that comes out of it, but I
I
think
mean,
if
it's a
it was,
fact. That's not narrative. They
it is a
dropped them
narrative.
off improperly. They dropped them off improperly clothed in 8-degree weather on Christmas Eve. That's not a narrative. That's the actual facts of what happened.
They do it all the time. I got a local small town here close to me, Atwood, Illinois, where they drop people off, and they didn't even let anybody know there. It's a small rural community in Illinois. They dropped them off there. Next thing you know, you had everybody calling the police because all these strange people walking around town.
Who
The
does
government
that?
just pulled up, dropped them off.
The Biden administration
Yes.
dropped off immigrants in your small town and just left them there.
Yeah, I don't live in the town, but it was a big deal on Facebook the night it happened. I live 30, 40 miles away. But it
I mean, I
caused a
watch a
big
lot of
ruckus.
right-wing media. I watch a lot of right-wing media, and I have not heard about this.
Well, it didn't make national news or nothing. It was just a local thing, and everybody was freaking out because in small towns. I don't know if you ever. Well, you're originally from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever go
Yeah.
about 150 miles south of, or about 110 miles south of Chicago? It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
And you got small
South of
towns.
Kankakee. Yeah, I've been all over Illinois. You're talking south of Kankakee. Yeah, I've been down to Danville and, I've been down there, but
Yep.
I have not heard. I mean, when you're talking about a small town like that and dropping off that many immigrants, it's obviously going to make a difference in that town, but why would you drop immigrants off in a tiny town that may not even have a shelter to begin with? That doesn't.
They don't even have. They barely have a post office. It's a small farming community close to. Really, it's real close to all the Amish that live down
What
this
year
way.
did this happen?
Just last year.
I would love to see
It
some
was during the
information.
summer.
How did you find out about it?
Oh, it was all over Facebook with all the people that I happen to know that were live in that town. They were like talking about how big a deal it was because there was these people that show up and nobody knows them. They're just kind of wandering around town, and then to come to find out they were just immigrants that got dropped off there by the government.
But even in that small town, they're going to have a television station like an ABC, CBS that covers that area. They're going to have newspapers. Is there any media that covered this story for that town?
I think it'd probably be WAND. I think covered it, and it was covered as the small town people were being racist because people of a different color, nationality were dropped off and they didn't speak English very well, and actually the truth was the first ones thought they were some crazy person thought they were terrorists. And that's what started the whole thing.
Any idea what was this is because WAND I see is out of Decatur, Illinois. Is there any what was the number of immigrants? You said they were bused there, right?
Yes, they were dropped off on a bus.
Now, I have not heard of this. I'm seeing here 75 migrants bus from Texas arrive in Chicago, but I'm on there.
It was like 8 people.
Oh, 8 people. I'd have to see it. I haven't. I mean, that's obviously smaller than 3 busloads, but I'd have to see. They just left them there. Didn't verify they had anything.
Yes, they were just on the street. I think I don't know what the outcome was, but I just know the original story started out that the people on Facebook were like thinking that the
I
government was
don't know.
dropping off some terrorist or something. I don't know. And then that grew in.
I don't know.
It got to,
That sound like that might be an anti-Biden hit job, man. I'd have to see more to that.
then what happened
I
was
mean,
the news got a
go
hold
ahead.
of it, and I think what the news was, they just straightened it out, saying, "Hey, they were immigrants and they were dropped off. That's where they wanted to go." It was like, I don't know. It was a couple
Well,
kids and like 3 middle-aged guys, and then I don't
yeah,
remember
but
the whole thing.
were they dropped? Were they dropped off in that town because they had family there, or were they just dropped off randomly, like what Abbott did was just took them to Kamala Harris's house to make a message. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to aid them in any way. Now, if Biden takes you to a town where you got family members and you want to go unite with your family, that's a difference. You said 8 people. I'm wondering if they didn't have family in that town.
Now, well, I can tell you they didn't have family in that town. Now, whether they had family in this area, very well could be, but not in that town. Absolutely did not have family in that town. I bet the population is 200. I'd have to look up, but it can't be more than 200 to 600 people.
Yeah, I can't find anything on. I looked online, right, just for a quick search. I can't find anything on it. I like to know if it was covered by anything more than Facebook, because people can say anything on Facebook. But if
No,
the
yeah, I know.
actual local,
That's where they originally. That's why I say, and the people on Facebook, some of the people, the reason it was even noticed by the local media was because people were saying they thought it was the government dropping off UN
yeah,
people and stuff, and and then when the story came out, it's like, no, they're just migrants, that are being dropped off, and as farm workers is what I think they put it as,
well,
people that are
and
going to
that
work on the farms.
and that's what I'm getting at, is that there has to be a reason why they were brought to that town. Now, if a farmer or a farm there promised them all jobs and they wanted to come because that's where they're going to. There's a reason why they would pick a little tiny ass town like that. Even
I
with what Governor DeSantis and Governor of Abbott is doing, there is a reason why they pick these areas. They're trying to make a political point. But if they're
I,
picking some small town in Illinois,
I think
they didn't just spin the map and do that. There's a reason why they're dropping them off there.
actually, I think originally they were dropped in Chicago, and then Chicago, the powers that be kind of dispersed them across the state.
I need to see more of the story
Yeah.
outside of Facebook. I mean, if they came to the area you're talking about, every little town has a local paper or something like that, or a neighboring town
Yeah,
that is
there's neighboring
concerned with
towns,
that town would
Decatur,
cover that.
Champaign, Urbana.
Yeah.
You'd have to look in there. It's been at least a year ago. I know it was in the
Okay.
big COVID times, and there was pretty good conspiracy theories on Facebook, but the media cleared it up with, hey, they were migrants being dropped off. And if I remember right, they were originally dropped off Chicago, which happens, I guess, quite often, and then they're dispersed where, a lot of them have host families
Yeah,
and
I
things like
mean,
that. But in Atwood, there was nobody.
well, here's the problem though. If you take an illegal immigrant, to a city like Chicago, they usually are going to go ahead and find their way, get a job under the table. So how did they end up getting picked back up in Chicago and taken to this tiny ass town? That
I
means they were never dropped off in Chicago. That means they were never out of custody in Chicago.
Well,
So
that's the
because you're
case.
not
That
going
might
to,
be. I
yeah.
think you
So
look up the media, Chicago, if you look, that's kind of the destination place. And because they do displace these people across the nation. Administration is doing it now. I don't know what the exact criteria of it is, but I do know that happens. And, I live in Champaign, Urbana,
yeah, but
and
I
we
think where
see it
we're
all the time.
differing.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
they
where
have a
we're
resource
different at.
here.
Yeah, but here's the difference. The Biden administration is far more pro immigrant than the Republican administration. Even when you're talking about illegal immigrants, the Republican administration obviously has zero tolerance for illegals. And clearly, the Biden administration is more pro immigrant, rather illegal or legal, than the Republicans are. So the
Well,
difference is, go ahead.
the truth is they both are pro, but they use because neither one of them fix it. Neither one of them make it easier to come in this country legally. and neither one of them fixed the border completely. Now, I will say Trump had an idea. He didn't get it done. And I think maybe they have different ways of going about it, but at the same time, neither one of them really want to fix it because large corporations would love the pressure that it puts on labor. I mean, I could tell you.
Well, but here's where I disagree with you. When you said they both are pro, I would normally agree that the Republicans want them because they're cheap labor and the Democrats want them because they turn into votes. But when you look at what DeSantis and Abbott has done recently in the amount of Republicans that are supporting that, that kind of removes the being pro-immigrant out of it. Because if you're okay with that happening to human beings to deliver a message, at that point, I'm going to say you're no longer pro-immigrant, especially with what Abbott did. You know, I'm not a fan of what DeSantis did either, but with Abbott sending them on Christmas Eve, improperly dressed in sub-freezing temperatures, you're not pro anybody you do that to. You would only do that to somebody you hate.
But if you live in Texas along that border, and I see these people all the time that have ranches and things along that border, and they got pickup trucks stolen all the time. They got stuff, people, and it affects them. And these small towns that along the border there in Texas, that their population grows, and there's a lot more crime and things happening.
Yeah. And it
that affects them, and the government pretends like it's not happening.
Yeah, it affects them, and it makes you develop a hatred toward them. I get your point, but that's what I'm saying. It's based on hate.
It makes a hatred for them, but it also makes when you're having that problem, and the federal government's job is to protect our borders. That is their main job as government. Yeah. And when you see them not doing it, and saying that, hey, this is not really happening.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of the points you're making that they're handling the border poorly. I get that, but I'm saying even if you believe the border is being handled improperly, what DeSantis and particularly what Abbott did with them freezing on Christmas Eve and they're not having proper clothing on, you only do that to somebody you really dislike. I mean, that's you would only do that out of hatred. There is, like you just said, well, if you can survive the dangers of the desert, you can survive these dangers for a few more hours. That is a message to somebody you really, really do not like at all. That has to be out of hatred.
I don't know if it's out of hatred, but I think it makes people, okay, let's say, he's the governor of the state. You have people putting pressure on him constantly to have something done. You need to do something. You need to put pressure. Right or wrong, that person now thinks they got to do something. And he may, I don't think he would necessarily hate him. I think everybody knows that they're going to get help, especially when you drop them off in front of the vice president's house. We know that they're not just going to, it's human nature. And sometimes
I can't buy that. I can't buy that. To me, that's like taking your child to a fire station because that's a safe haven, like taking your baby and dropping it off at a fire station, but not taking it inside the firehouse, leaving it right there on the concrete in the middle of winter under the guise, well, somebody was going to see it and come out and help it. You would be charged with neglect for doing that. He could have, if he really wanted to take them to a sanctuary city, he could have made a phone call ahead of time to make sure the shelters are open. He could have picked it on a day when more resources are open as opposed to Christmas Eve when everything is closed. That's something you do to me, in my opinion, for somebody you really, really dislike. Because there are a few simple common courtesies you could make to make these people you could still send them to Kamala Harris's house. But you could have went to the Salvation Army and paid a few bucks and got them coats or shoes. You could have did it on December 22nd or 23rd when shelters and stuff are more likely to be open as opposed to Christmas Eve. You could have made sure Kamala Harris was actually home or dropped a bus off in front of a shelter to actually deal with them. Everything he did suggests you really hate these people.
But that's the same thing that suggested but I would suggest the administration thinks of these people too.
Okay, we can argue that. But I'm saying what Abbott did shows he hates them.
two rights don't make a wrong. And I'm not saying what
Yeah.
Governor Abbott is actually. I mean, it's horrible to use people as pawns for anything, and that's what's happening. I don't care what anybody says. I just understand the frustration. So that's what happens when
You can't get that
frustration happens
frustrated.
in the country. Bad things happen.
You can't get that frustrated. Just like I said, it's like the mom who's frustrated that her baby won't stop crying and she leaves it on the cement at the fire station, hoping somebody will see it and come. You can't get that frustrated. When you start driving people off in sub-freezing temperatures without even the proper clothing on, you can't let your frustrations get you to that level. I mean, if you want to bust them to these other cities so that they have to absorb some of the resources that you don't want to have taxing your system, you could take them in the middle of the day. You could take them and drop them off in front of shelters, not in front of somebody's house that ain't even home. I mean, there are plenty of better ways you can do that. To me, I see nothing but I really hate these people, and I'm going to deliver a message as brutal as I can at the expense of these people, as you clearly suggested. Hell, if they can survive a dangerous trek through the desert, they can survive what I'm doing. So it was clearly no consideration for them at all. But I'll give you the last word. I got to move it on.
Okay, man. It was good talking to you, and I really do. I know it seems cruel sometimes, the things we do, and I think both sides do it. And
Yeah.
I won't suggest that it's the best thing for them, but in the end, the people will probably be better off.
Yeah, but it wasn't
Right
because
now
he
for
was
where
trying
they
to make them
went, and they
better off.
had to endure some things. And I think that what we need to do is quit, just like we're doing. How about we pressure the administration to go down there and do something about it, so we don't have these governors doing stuff like this.
Well, and that's what I said. You got to control your anger, even if the administration does nothing about it. You can't do that. Being cruel because you think the administration is ineffective, you vote them out of power. You can impeach Biden now. You got a Republican Congress. You do what else it takes, but you don't put people's lives in danger like that. You know, that's not the answer to an ineffective government. That's just making you look worse as them, which is why I originally started out by telling you you can do something so bad in effort to deliver a message that your message is totally lost. Because we're talking about this now. But
I
appreciate
do
you coming
agree.
through, man.
I agree
Yep.
that his message, and he'll be held for that. You know, he'll be
Yep.
his vote next time he gets elected. He'll be held for that. You know, the people will make up their mind whether that's a good or bad thing. Unfortunately, I think the division in this country, he may not suffer for that. You know, I think the problem
He
is,
may not suffer. He may not suffer because he's in Texas, but I will tell you this: the Republican Party's viewpoint with the Hispanics is going to suffer significantly. So
yeah,
for Republicans that are running in races that are in closer states, I mean, obviously Texas is a red state right now, but the swing states, this can cost people their jobs. I mean, so he's hurt, and the same thing down in Florida with Ron DeSantis doing the same thing. His state, he's secure, but you are going to hurt other Republican politicians in swing states because you're letting Hispanics know you don't give a shit about them, to the point where, like you said, hey, if you can survive the desert, you can survive this. I mean,
tell
that is I don't give a shit about your response.
me this real quick though, before we go. With Florida, didn't DeSantis do this before the election? And then he picked up a big part of the Hispanic votes, right?
The DeSantis, no, well, first of all, let me make it clear, and I said the national Hispanics. DeSantis is getting a lot of Cuban votes. The Cuban Hispanics vote Republican. It's a different sect of Republicans because they're fleeing socialism and communism, so they don't vote Democrat. But the majority of Hispanics in this country are not Cuban. I'm talking about the ones that are coming across the border that we're doing this to. Cubans are not being sent to Martha's Vineyard in the middle of freezing temperatures. It's the Hispanics coming across the southern border. Them are the ones he's going to destroy his vote with.
Yeah, which a lot of them, and I know this because I employ quite a few Guatemalans, and so I constantly ask them, what's their thoughts, just so I understand, and pretty much, of course, they tell me how hard it is to get legally their families here, and in the cost, has a lot to do with their own government that makes the cost. It's not necessarily ours. there's such a corrupt government. But the fact that they'll do just about anything to get them here. And the reason is because I truthfully believe that immigrants are, whether they're illegal or illegal, for the most part, at least the ones that I deal with all the time, are understand the American dream better than most Americans. I think Americans have become very, very entitled, and I think they understand it more than any of them. They will sacrifice. I think there's a lot we could learn from them because they take care of their family. I mean, I think there's so much we could learn from them,
Well,
and I do.
the only way you're going to learn that lesson is to reduce the tentacles of capitalism. Capitalism, for folks who are always bitching about the country is going in the wrong direction from traditional America, is capitalism. I mean, we used to work bankers' hours. Remember the Dolly Parton song, "Working 9 to 5"? You didn't work 9 to 5:30, but the corporation stopped paying you for lunch, so now you work longer. You didn't work on weekends. Now they got you working on they got you working on Black Friday and even people working on Thanksgiving Day. Everybody are working staggered shifts. They're working all three shifts. You didn't used to be able to buy a television at 3 o'clock in the morning, but corporations are now staying open 24 hours a day. So all of this separation of families and all of this stuff is because everybody is chasing the almighty dollar. They're getting paid less and they're working multiple jobs, so they can't be home with family.
And you know why? It's because we argue about the things that we argue about every day, and they divide us. But yet both sides are taking that corporate dollar, ain't they? And they ain't passing no laws to really help us.
Well,
Ain't either
according
side.
to you guys on the right, we're socialists. According to you guys, we want to be socialists. We don't want to be capitalists. That's what you folks on the right say.
Well, I go along all these on things on TikTok, and mostly I see people wanting to go more communist than socialism.
Now,
I mean, they want to do away with they want to do away. I hear so many people on the left that want to do away with our Constitution and make a new one. And
well, Trump is quoted. Trump is quoted as saying he wants to terminate the Constitution, and he's not on the left. But I got to move it on, man.
yep, we'll move it on. But yeah, we don't care about Trump. DeSantis going to be the man.
We do. He's running for president. Catch you later, man.
He can run all he wants, but he ain't going to win.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right.
Comments, but yeah, in regards to terminating the Constitution, there are a lot of liberals that want to amend the Constitution for things like LGBT rights. I mean, the Republicans tend to be more of traditionalists. They want to keep the Constitution the way the founding fathers set the country forth. The liberals often want to push the Constitution in different ways. However, when we start talking about getting rid of the Constitution and the Democrats want to do that, Trump has got to be brought in the conversation because he did use the phrase terminate the Constitution. So will he win again? Many would say he's going to have an uphill battle if he wants to be reelected. But nevertheless, he is a Republican presidential candidate right now. So when he starts talking about terminating the Constitution, we're not going to ignore him saying it. He's running for public office, and he's already had it before. No different than when Beto O'Rourke yelled out, "You damn right we want to take your AR-15s." He wasn't even a politician at the time. But yet the Republicans listened to him. We easily could have said that's never going to happen. No, Republicans use that shit as campaign statements all over the country. So if Trump says he's going to terminate the Constitution, we're going to use that as well. That's how politics works. How dare we talk about a Democrat in the same sentence as corruption? This has been going on for decades. SSG, I don't quite get what you're discussing in regards to that. I myself have put up a better fence to keep the trespassers out. WLS, in regards to building a wall to keep out immigrants, what about the notion that most of them actually come here legally and overstay their visa? I think when the Trump campaign was, Trump and Hillary Clinton were running, they were saying it was 12 million illegals in the country at the time. You really believe they all ran across the desert and jumped across the river? All 12 million of them? No, there are plenty of other ways to get in this country that a wall would not stop. And as I suggested before, a wall is only as valuable as those securing it. And there are simply too many American capitalist corporations in this country and politicians that want immigrants in this country, so they would open up the wall. Even Trump said, I want a wall with a great big door in it. Well, that's what they're going to open up and let them in. The Republicans love their lobbyists, and the lobbyists love the businesses that give them the money to lobby would, and that money oftentimes comes from cheap labor. So the Republicans are going to be siding with this because they make money. And of course, the liberals are no different. They like it because at the end of the day, when Hispanics come over here and they do gain residency, ultimately they have children. Those children grow up to vote Democrat. You see the pictures on Fox where all the immigrants are lined up on the river that they're showing all over the news every day. I would say probably 70 to 80% of them are going to grow up to be Democrats. Or if their kids are going to be Democrat. Those are votes for Democrats. It's probably why Biden is not taking it that serious. Those are voters that are going to change into Democrats. You can disagree with me, but I'm telling you, I strongly believe those are Democratic voters. And then when you see TV, you see the shit that Governor Abbott just did. That certainly is not going to bid well with any Hispanic that's coming over here. That once they get their residency, they're going to be like, well, shit, the Republicans were sending us out in the cold when we were trying to get here. At least the Democrats did send us to a city where they gave us a shelter and shit. The Republicans were kicking us out and sending us to freezing places. That's going to come back, and that's going to come back to haunt them, I'm telling you. Looking in the comments. Big Harry Souza. Welcome back to the program, Big Harry. Asking the question.
Lead Republican. Whoa. Harry Souza, good evening.
Hey, didn't expect to get on so quick. Thanks for putting
I
me
don't
on.
know. TikTok treats my guest box like the immigration line. Everybody gets to skip all. I don't know how it does it, but I'm going to ask you, what do you think about the immigrants being bused to the home of Kamala Harris? No shoes, no shirt, no service. They're barely dressed properly in sub-freezing temperatures. You think that was the right thing to do?
No.
Yeah, why would he do it?
Well, I'll say this off the top. This was really good for the cartel.
Oh,
the cartels,
how so?
the coyotes, the big win. Well, what does this tell people coming to America? This is telling them what's going to happen if you come in through the legal system and declare yourself a refugee. How are you going to be treated? What's going to happen?
Well, you don't know because they're not. I had someone on here that was one generation from immigrating in the country himself, and I asked him. I said, "Is the message in the Hispanic community south of the border is that America has an open border?" And he was like, "No, they don't believe that." So I don't know how it's going to reverberate south of the border.
Well, I just think that stuff like this, when the cruelty shown to people who are just, trying to get a better life for themselves, fleeing violence,
Right.
looking for economic opportunity. This just tells them that if you want a safe way in and out of America, use the cartels, use the coyotes. Going in, if you declare that you're a refugee and you come in the legal way, they're going to take your kids. They're going to lose them in the system. They might send you into a migrant detention facility for months or years without trial or representation.
Without your kids.
Without that, they lose your kids. Didn't Trump lose like 500 kids?
Yeah.
I mean,
and you think that message would resonate to an immigrant trying to get here is that if you want to come use the cartels, come to the country, they're going to take your kid potentially forever. You think that would be something that they would be willing to do?
I think that at this point, it's very clear that the cruelty that you would receive from some Americans is much less than the cruelty than most, I think, would, or at least what the cartels are telling them. Obviously,
right.
They're organized criminal organization. They're responsible for a lot of evil. But when you have politicians pulling stunts like this, it is only going to tell people that the legal systems are not here to work for you, and that the illegal systems actually might be less cruel. And when think about it, it's a big incentive. Look, you get to keep your kids. None of this crazy stuff will happen to you. We can talk all day about how legal system, like, oh, just come in legally. Well, they've made it really, really tough to come in legally, and
Yeah.
on top of that, the people who are coming in legally are treated quite cruelly.
How so?
We just went over a few. The separation of the kids policies,
Yeah.
the detention centers. You might get bused to Kamala Harris's house in sub-zero weather with a T-shirt on your back. I mean,
Well, so I mean, if you can't come legally, or I mean, like coming legally, because a lot of folks will tell you all the time, I'm not anti-immigrant. I just want you to come legally. Well, we know coming legally, not only does it cost a fortune, it might take you 20 years to get in the country that way, and in a lot of cases, because we certainly want to vet, we want to properly vet the folks that are coming to this country. You don't want to just let anybody in. If you're coming from a country like Venezuela, who for the most part don't even have a government, how can you vet that person? So for some folks, I don't even know if coming legally is an option.
Well, I think that when you say, well, vet, like, do you mean like the people have like a bunch of papers and identification? These people
No,
are refugees.
I'll give you an example. I lived in Australia for a while, and I got residency. I lived there for a number of years, and they had to vet me. They required that I had to have fingerprints I had to get a police record from the city of Chicago, Cook County, which is the county of Chicago's in the state of Illinois. I had to get state police check. They also required that I send my fingerprints to the FBI. The FBI had to send back reports, and they ran me through Interpol to make sure I was not wanted on from other nations. In addition to that, I took blood tests, x-rays, all of that. They checked to make sure I have anything in my system. If you're coming from Venezuela, how much of that can be done? I mean, like when it comes to
If
the
you're
fact that they
coming
have
from
no
war-torn Ukraine, how much of that could be done? It's a refugee situation. You're
right. So
comparing
that's what I'm saying is that
a refugee situation to just regular old immigration situation, and they're incomparable. One is the product of war and social instability, and the other is the product of peace and climbing up the social ladder, becoming a global citizen.
so then how can someone from a country like Venezuela that's, for the most part decimated, how can they come here legally?
There are international laws on refugees. If you would pose that question to anybody who is coming over from any conflict, you would negate almost a lot of people. Like, do you think that Jewish people who came to America after World War II, do you think that they had
Good
much
point.
more than the
Really good
people
point.
coming
Yeah,
from Venezuela? But we had no
that is a good point.
problem letting these people in.
That's not true. That actually is not true. America took a hell of a beating on the world stage because we let in so few Jewish people. We thought that they were communists because they were living in Germany. America did a very poor job in taking in Jewish after World War II. So that actually is not true.
I will agree. I will agree with you there. Uh, you're 100% correct. They were.
And that's the same thing that's happening even when it comes to the Ukraine. We're not taking. I mean, America's not. Lately we have not been good on letting people in this country. I mean, because they're also crying about that. They cried about it with the Syrian refugee problem as well. That we only took in a very small, maybe 10,000 people or something like that. It was very little when there was a huge Syrian exodus of refugees.
Yeah, I mean, and that was. It's a very comparable situation to what's happening in South America, where you have America coming in, taking out,
Right.
des, you know, Hussein was a despotic leader, but he didn't have weapons of mass destruction, right? And when we
Oh, depends. We don't know. I don't know.
what do you mean we
Let's
don't
just
know?
be real. Let's just be real. When they said that Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that's because I believe we would have been the ones to give them to him when he was fighting, when they were fighting the Iranians. But in my opinion, it wouldn't surprise me if we quickly grabbed those weapons up and all of a sudden said we couldn't find them. I don't trust anything that comes out of that.
I mean, that's an extraordinary claim, and I'm going to need to see some extraordinary evidence. I mean, what you're saying is that
Well,
America
I'll give you an
probably
extraordinary.
orchestrated this war.
I'll
Like
give you
what?
an extraordinary response. It was Colin Powell on television saying, "Here are the trucks that has the weapons of mass destruction in them,"
Yes,
and then we invade the country. You can't find it.
can't find it. And you had UN inspectors coming in, independent agencies saying like, we don't
Yeah,
see what you're saying, and they admitted
yeah,
that they lied about this.
yeah.
So like, there's
So
no
I don't
question
know.
that
I just
they,
say, yeah, I don't
like,
trust anything that comes out of that.
why would they go through the trouble of admitting they lied about it if they were the one, if they had proof that there was weapons of mass destruction? Come on, that's an outlandish thing. You're better than outlandish theories than that. I know you're smarter than
Like
that.
I said, at the end of the day, I don't trust anything they have said about Iraq, anything they have said about Afghanistan. When you find out that Saddam Bin Laden was hiding out in Pakistan, I don't. After 9/11, in my opinion, because that galvanized the country, it essentially gave our government a ticket to do whatever the hell they want. If you got any enemies right now, everybody's pissed off. We can go after whoever the hell we want to. They'll let us do anything right now. They'll give us any amount of money for the military budget. They just want blood. We can steer them in any direction we want, and I believe we fell for them.
I mean, you say that, but if you look at South America, 70s, 80s, and 90s, what was America doing?
During the 70s and 80s, what, at Falklands? What are you talking about?
Or I guess to be more like, I guess I'd more specifically point you to like the Iran Contra scandal, where
Okay.
Reagan was.
We were funding both sides of the war in the Iranian-Iraq war in what you're talking about. And that's also another reason. Remember this guy with the Brittany Griner thing, how folks talk about he's the merchant of death. My response is that's what we have been. We do exactly what he was accused of doing, funding terrorist groups, we were doing all of the same
Yes.
shit we accused him of doing.
So America spent decades destabilizing South America, taking out democratically elected leaders and installing fascist dictators to protect American business interests. You know, the banana republics. There's a lot of examples of America really screwing things up for the regular person in South America
Right.
and stripping South America of their natural resources. So
in my opinion, go ahead.
We go in, we destabilize a region, and then we act like we have no responsibility to take in the people displaced. We have a responsibility, and I don't think it's on the people fleeing, like these regular, hardworking, salt of the earth people, fleeing conflict, to be like, well, you don't have all your papers with you, so you can't get through. No, that's America's fault. Maybe we should have thought about that before destabilizing all the governments in South America.
Well, if you're going to bring up destabilizing governments, I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast. Why not go in and do what you got to do in Mexico to make that country better for the citizens there so that people don't come here?
Because it's not just people coming from Mexico. It's people.
Yeah, but they would stop in Mexico, though. They use Mexico as a thoroughfare. And they don't stop in Mexico because it is not very good to live in.
How exactly would you make it better? Would you invade Mexico?
No. I would do exactly what we did to make China a better country for its citizens. Put those call centers and those factories you want low wage labor, just put it there. Okay, you may pay them a few pennies more than you were paying the Chinese, which was working for dirt wages. You can build call centers and all of that stuff in Mexico. And that
China
way,
isn't Mexico. They're
What?
completely
No,
different
you know,
countries.
I think you hear what I've said. I don't think you hear what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in effort to undermine U.S. salaries, we built a hell of a lot of jobs in China. As a result, the nation of China has become stronger financially. What I'm saying is remove those call centers, factories, and things like that in China and put them in Mexico in hopes of the same results. And Mexico is an ally. China is not.
So why I'm an American business owner. I own a call center in China, or I use a call center in China. Why am I going to break the contract I have with a good business partner that I've been working with for decades? What are you going to do to make me do it? Are you going to force American companies to do?
Yes, yes. And
How
this
are
is
you going to
where I
force people
started.
to do business
I'm
places?
trying to explain it to you. This is why I started standing up and really liking Trump. Is because, and even though I didn't support Trump, but this is one of the things I really enjoyed he was saying when he was about to run for president, is that he talked about the improper trade imbalance, say with John Deere in Mexico, and he was going to start adding higher taxes and tariffs. You can do stuff like that. You can deem China a sponsor of terror with some of the shit they're doing. You can make it so that if you impose sanctions, you can't open or do business with China on certain levels. You can do all sorts of things to make those factories have to come out of China. Just find a way to do it.
Just find a way is not a
Yeah.
solution, A. And B, there is no way that people are going to move from a country like China, which is a world superpower with a very robust infrastructure and a very robust education system, versus Mexico, which does not have those kind of things. People don't do business in Mexico
Here's
because it
the
doesn't have the infrastructure
when
like
we
that.
started.
China is a
Oh,
technology superpower. Of course, people are going to
wait a
do
minute
call
though.
center
You
stuff
but
in
you
China.
when we started creating those jobs in China, it was not a robust economy or a superpower. They are that way because of us. So if you can do it in China, if you go back in the 1960s, people weren't moving to China like that. That happened because of us. It can happen in Mexico. The same thing we did to that country could be done to Mexico.
It would destabilize world markets. So much of the West
Well,
relies on China. It would be a Herculean task. It would be bigger. It would be a bigger task than any other country has done for mounting up for a world war. It would
my
be
response is simple.
impossible.
If you did it, you can undo it. China was nowhere near the
That's
juggernaut you're
not true.
pointing out at one point. We made them the juggernaut. If we made them the juggernaut, we can do that to someone else. Everything you're saying about why this
You
wouldn't
can't
happen and why
close
that didn't
Pandora's
happen,
box. You're saying we can do it, we can undo it. That why? What makes that true?
what do you mean?
Can you unkill someone?
This is not the same.
I'm
This is
just
not the same as
saying.
unkilling
I'm just
someone.
saying. But like what you're saying, like, oh, we're gonna impose sanctions. Like that's not gonna work because Mexico doesn't have the infrastructure. Mexico, not
Where
unlike
did China get
Russia,
the?
is a
Where did China get
country
the?
that is
What?
run
Where
by
did
the
China get
mob.
the infrastructure? I think you're greatly undermining the capabilities of Mexico. China got all of this stuff because we sent over a ton of money for them to make this stuff happen. They couldn't do this on their own. We sent over the jobs. We're the reason they're
China,
making
our
iPhones and
economic
all this stuff.
rival, we've been helping out like buddy. No,
Say that again.
I said China, our economic and political rival, the communists,
Right.
right? We've
Yeah.
been helping them out
Yes.
for decades.
Yes.
Why?
How
Why would
how
we
did
be
we?
doing that?
Because we are undermining U.S. salaries. We don't care about the dirty enemy. The corporations got the permission to go over there and exploit that cheap labor, and they're doing that at the cost of the American worker. That's why.
They're doing it there because it makes sense to do stuff there.
Okay.
Because they have.
We can go back and forth on that, but I totally believe that if you can make China into something from nothing, you can do that elsewhere. China was
Can you
not the powerhouse before we started shipping all that stuff over there. They were not this powerhouse. And if they end
Can you
up
give me an
encroaching,
example that isn't an economic and political rival of ours? Like, what's an example of a ally to America that we have built up and made good? Because I'm not going to accept China as an example. We've been historically frenemies with China.
I don't know. I don't know of any ally that we built up to that nation, to that level, because we're not going to do it to an ally because we want it. The reason we dealt with China is because we knew we could get kids to work and people to work for $1 per day. None of our allies are going to work that low. That's why we haven't done it for an ally. Nobody would work it. Now the Philippines is another nation that's an ally that we greatly built up because they will work for them ridiculous wages. But in most of you're not going to get people in the UK or France or
I would
Germany
not
to
I
work
would
for
not
$1 a day.
I would not say that the Philippines is in a great position. Duterte is a despot, and they have huge problems.
And Xi Jinping in China is not a despot. They don't have huge problems in China.
They're not our friends.
Okay. Well, I guess the point I'm just trying to tell you, what I'm simply trying to tell you is if we could do it for China, we could do it for other countries. And if all we got to do is point to some incursion that China is making towards Taiwan and use that as an excuse to impose sanctions on China. Because if we end up having China do to Taiwan what Russia did to the Ukraine, a lot of these businesses are going to have to come home anyway. Because that's what's going to
So
happen.
you're saying that we should do to Mexico what China's doing to Taiwan, what Russia's doing to Ukraine? That sounds like an invasion.
I guess you just interpreted me totally different than what I'm saying. I'm simply saying move the businesses that you have in China to Mexico. Give those corporations incentives to move their call centers and their manufacturing plants from Mexico to China. That is all I'm saying.
Well, that is a very broad and I'd say that you need to really flesh that out because I'm seeing a lot of steps in between incentivize business in Mexico to solving an immigration crisis.
All right. Fair enough. I got to move it on. Susan, appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.
It's all about, folks. We're going to have some disagreements. His economic viewpoint may be different than mine, but yeah, I strongly believe if we were able to build up China to the level they're built up, it doesn't become where China, we have to stick with China and it's now impossible to do it anywhere else. I don't buy that. He believes that, but I do believe in the phrase, I put you in this world, I can take you out. I mean, China is a powerhouse based on the American dollar. I mean, we are their biggest export partner. And in addition to America, they're also building a bunch of shit for other Western countries like Australia and UK and all of them. If America ends up imposing sanctions on the Chinese for their dream of reacquiring Taiwan, it's going to happen again anyway, because that's the first thing that would happen. Just like with Russia, the minute they went into the Ukraine, we imposed all sorts of sanctions on them. So now there's only a limited amount of business American corporations can do with Russia. If China goes into Taiwan, a lot of what I'm saying we should try is going to happen anyway. I don't know if it's going to happen to better Mexico, but you're certainly going to have a hell of a lot of businesses pulling out of China. I mean, you don't want to be a business in China while we're at a proxy war with them. So it's likely to happen anyway, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's right. Looking in the comments. Not thinking that's never going to change. We have multiple countries that we trade with. Yeah, but none of them are anywhere near the level of China. I mean, like nowhere near the level of China. American companies are too intertwined with China now, says Terry Sigler. Yeah, that is true. What the caller was also suggesting is that American corporations are very intertwined with China. However, there was a point in time when most of our corporations were not intertwined with China, and it formed out of time. The idea that it can never be undone doesn't make sense to me. If it came out of nowhere, it can disappear back into nowhere. I mean, there is, like I just simply said, if we end up going into a proxy war with China over their incursion of Taiwan, some of this is going to happen. Some of this is going to happen anyway, just like it has happened with Russia. There's a hell of a lot of companies, or better yet, not companies, but a hell of a lot of countries that were greatly intertwined with Russia because of their production of fossil fuels and things like that. And a lot of those have been broken off now that they've went into the Ukraine. Any type of alliance can be undone. I don't care how deep or how strong it is. It can be undone. I mean, don't just throw your hands in the air and say there's no way it could ever happen. It can be undone. You just need the right incentive to undo it. We are Americans. We can do anything. I definitely believe this can be done. I certainly believe it can be done. You just have to have the motivation to do it in the right party, right people in power to do it. Now, obviously, the only reason why we would not want to undo it is because people are making a lot of money. And that is the reason why it was done in the first place. But if you could give big, huge tax cuts and other incentives to corporations to move their businesses from China to Mexico, one of them being the transportation costs of getting goods and services back into the country would be a lot less. But if you could give them the right incentives, you could get a host of businesses to move from China to Mexico. And by the way, you don't need to get 100% of them. Let's say there's far more employees in China where Mexico doesn't have the amount of manpower that China has. Okay, let's say 40% of the businesses were given incentives to move from China to Mexico. That could be enough to really spark the Mexican economy and thereby make it so that Mexicans are not so damn eager to leave their country. But at the end of the day, you also got to deal with the cartel. I mean, just like we dealt with the Taliban, we've dealt with ISIS, we've dealt with Al-Qaeda. Why not deem the cartel as a terrorist organization? It shouldn't be, this shit is not that hard to do. We just don't want to do it. If you can make all of these other factions we've created to be, I mean, you can't put together a case with the amount of deaths and mayhem that the cartel deems that how many Americans have suffered at the hands of the cartel. You tell me you couldn't put together a case to make them as a terrorist group? Once you do that, you can get them anywhere you want to get them. You tell me we can't do that or we don't want to do that. Looking at the comments. It is Michael B.W.
Again, too much money being made from the cartel. That is true. It's corruption. Mike,
Hey,
good evening.
how's it going?
Howdy.
So the first
I'm
thing,
doing good.
the first thing,
What do you think? Go ahead.
sorry, first thing I got to say is, what did I tell you? I told you when we talked last time. I told you that they were gonna hammer the crap out of Biden about that switch, and I told you that it was set up by Putin that way. Okay, and ever since the trade, the
You talking about Brittany Griner?
the prisoner trade.
Yeah.
I told you they were going to hammer the crap out. You said it was going to be a little nothing ball, but it's not. That was something that Putin had in his mind. It's like, yeah, I can't hurt them seriously, but I'm going to stir up things, and I've got until the next election to really drive a wedge in the American populace over that issue, which
I don't. I still gotta stand by my original statement. I think the Brittany Griner trade is a nothing burger. It made news for a while. Even like now, that pretty much is out of the news. Election. We still have a couple more years before we end a presidential election. I don't think that's going to even come up. I just think that's a nothing burger. I think it made its news. It had its 15 minutes of fame. I think that's over with.
All right, okay, and your last customer, your last guy, he was talking about the China situation,
Yes.
and I don't think we can go back on that. And the reason I don't think we can go back on that is simply because we didn't deal exclusively with China.
Right.
Okay, and China has already about 3 to 5 years ahead of us in uh, recruiting the new economies. They are heavily invested in Africa, which is going to be the next big economic area of the world. Okay,
Okay.
so if we snatch out of there, it's not going to matter to them because they've already replaced it with Africa and other parts of the country.
Yeah, but
Other parts of the world.
you're assuming Americans don't then start going to Africa and competing with them over there. We're pretty much letting them have free reign of Africa. That's not to
Right.
say we couldn't go over there and compete.
No, we couldn't go over there and compete. We couldn't go because for the last 5 years they've been training their populace on the languages and the customs and so forth over there. And what about 45% of the major businesses and the government is in debt to China more than we're in debt to China, and they don't have the money to pay them back. So China's just sitting there waiting for them to default on those loans so they can go in and take over. You
Yeah,
know,
but that
so
what China has going on in Africa is not preventing U.S. businesses from withdrawing their business from China. We still can
well,
do that. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. But what I'm saying is, it's not gonna be like, oh darn, we they hit us so hard because a lot of their businesses are right here in our country. I mean, the biggest pork manufacturing plant in the United States is owned by China. They own so
you
much.
can still do all that. Keep in mind when you look at the size of the Chinese workforce compared to a place like Mexico, like I said before, even if you just cut down some of our dealings with China, let's say, for instance, out of all of the stuff we got going on in China, you put 20% of it in Mexico. That would probably be enough to flood that damn country because China's so large. So you don't have to take it out 100%. I'm just simply saying give businesses and incentives to move stuff to Mexico and some of these other Central American countries. Put a few businesses here or there throughout Central America and Mexico. And I think you could strengthen the economies in those countries to the point where they would not be so eager to leave. And of course, you got to deal with the cartel.
Right, but like I said, you're right. They could take them all out of there, and you would think that would. But like I said, it wouldn't work out that way because not only the things I talked about, the other thing that you're not thinking about is they just set up a new economic pact with Iran, Russia, and China and North Korea. Okay, which immediately increased China's wealth, okay? And they're cutting us out. So if we snatch them out of one place and put them in the other, our position will stay the same. But they're still buying up over here, you know.
No,
Uh,
yeah, but if we end up going into some what went on with Russia, if we end up going into a proxy war with China, the debt we owe them and the property and all that shit they have over here, that stuff's going to mean nothing. See what happened when we went into a proxy war with Russia when they attacked the Ukraine? We started seizing yachts and shit from all of the oligarchs and things like that. All
right.
bets are off if we start heading toward a war. So if the Chinese go into Taiwan, the fact that we're deep in debt, all of that stuff goes away. We're not going to pay you shit if
No,
we're in war with you.
no, it won't because they can do.
Russia is a perfect example. The
No,
minute
not
we
really,
go
not
ahead,
really, because Russia doesn't. We don't owe Russia, okay?
doesn't
We,
matter. It doesn't
but
matter. We still see, even
it
though
does because they
here's
will
the
take
point I'm
our
making.
yachts. They
Here's
will
the
take
point I'm
our
making.
yachts.
Even
They
though
will
we
take
don't,
our land.
even though we do not owe Russia, it didn't stop us from seizing their bank accounts that we had no rightful place to take. We still took it. We took money, even though it wasn't ours to take. Right? We would do the same to China. We're not going to pay you.
Uh, I got it. I understand what you're saying, but like I said, I gotta say, they own right here in the United States, and they can take our stuff just like we can take theirs, and we need more coming from them than they need from us. So if we freeze their stuff, they freeze ours. We're hurt.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if we end up going into some type of proxy
That's what
war with
I'm
them,
saying. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. That's what, and the thing is whatever damage we can do for them, they supplement it by what they've got in Africa.
I don't know. I think that if we stop doing
That's what
business with
happened.
them, while I agree there would be some sacrifices to be made here at home because we're used to buying cheap goods from China. I think they would be hurting worse than us because they would not only lose us as remember, they send way more to us than we send back to them. So there's a huge trade imbalance. And that same trade imbalance exists with most of Western Europe. And if we end up being at odds with China, they're going to lose trading partners all over the damn world because all of Western Europe is probably going to follow us. They're not going to continue trading with the UK or France or Germany. They're going to be cutting off ties with them as well. I think
Yeah.
we would hurt, but I think China would hurt more.
Yeah. You might have a point on some of that, but like I said, if they hadn't picked up Africa, we would be in trouble. But
I don't think Africa's there yet. I don't think I get what you're saying on Africa. Africa's not there yet. Not to be giving it that much credit this early in the game. Give me 50 years or so, maybe, but right now they're not there yet.
yeah, but see, they've been there for 20 years, 20, 25 years now.
And
That's
they
the
living like that?
Yes, that's the thing. They, like I said, somewhere between 40 and 50% of the continent over there, the government owes China money.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I
You
get
know,
what you're saying, but
like
I don't. We got to
and
disagree.
so
I don't think Africa's anywhere near there yet. I don't think they're there yet.
well, yeah, I agree. Um, and I think it really hurt us the fact that when this was beginning to emerge 6 years ago, and Donald Trump didn't want to deal with those SO countries. So he he didn't, he didn't even start training our kids to speak the languages. And see,
Yeah.
that's
I
what we're
mean, there's an argument to be made that we are behind on taking education seriously in this country, but I do think that they would hurt more than this. But I got to move it on, though, Michael. You know how we do. Good talk, man. Enjoy the rest of your holiday, dude. Catch you on the
yeah,
next one.
yeah.
All right. They are not there yet, but it's getting there, says Chalk Nadi. I agree with that, but at the end of the day, if we continue down this path, it is a losing battle for us. We need to make no mistake about it, China's not an ally to the United States. Nobody believes China is a serious ally to America. So if you continue down this path, which my last two callers have been stating, where you can't undo ties with China, they're taking over Africa, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, this is going to come home to roost and cause us even more problems than it would if we withdraw right now. So, in my opinion, the sooner the better. Obviously, the folks who are making money that are well above all of our pay grades are going to disagree with me because they're making too much money. But money is what got us into this. Chasing money, chasing cheap labor on the territory of a adversary has allowed that adversary to become a juggernaut. But chasing money and capitalism is what's gotten us into this. But at the end of the day, I do believe that we can either do something now and sacrifice things a little bit in this country because you have to pay more for goods and services without China producing them for so cheap. We can do something now and deal with that, or we can wait and continue enjoying things right now for the interim and let China turn into a superpower that might cause us a hell of a lot more problems in maybe our grandchildren's lifetime. So I would, in my opinion, the sooner the better. That's what I feel. This is something you need to do now. And that's one reason why I was liking Trump on that one particular policy, is he was pointing that out, that China's a major problem. We need to do something now. A lot of folks wouldn't listen to that. So here we are. Carrie Illa, appreciate you holding on. Yes, is those capitals' fault and no one blames them. Okay, fair enough. We could let Mexico make it cheaper. I do believe Mexico is a country that is far more of an ally of America than China. I mean, obviously we got far more Mexicans in the country, so yeah, I would. And share a border with them. So I would definitely be more in favor of taking the infrastructure that we've given to China and bring as much of that stuff as we can back to the North American continent. I just think it would be better, but obviously people disagree with me. Mexico is more expensive. Yeah, but then you're going to be reducing things like the cost of travel, because now you can just move the goods by rail instead of having to put them on cargo ships and all of that stuff. And I don't know. But if you're dealing with Mexico, because there's so many Mexicans in this country that send the money back home and back, I don't know. It would become a far better partnership in my opinion, because now the money is either in Mexico or the United States, and it's going back and forth. I just think China is on a whole different level, and it's sinister. It's not in our best interest. I don't think Mexico is anywhere near the thought process of defeating America as a superpower. China is working on that right now. China is working on that. And if they become a superpower, which some argue they may already be, but if they become a superpower, it's going to be at our detriment. We're nowhere near worried about that with Mexico. So I would, even if you want to suggest this is an issue that might delay it for another 100 years or so until Mexico becomes one, kick it down the road. But yeah, I'd rather kick the can down the road and work with Mexico as opposed to China. Everything we do on the world stage, China is on the opposing side of the table. I mean, like literally everything, whether it's the Iraq war, whether it's the shit we're dealing with Russia and Ukraine for climate change, they're on the other side of everything we do. That's the last country in the world we need to pump up to become a superpower. It just is not in our best interest. It's making a few corporate heads over here very wealthy because they get access to the cheap labor, but it's ultimately going to be at the expense of every damn body else in the country. That should have never been allowed to happen. It's just, you shouldn't be able to pump up anybody unless you're for sure they're at least on your damn side, because you have to ask the question, if we get them a bunch of money, what are they going to do with the money? Well, they're building up their military. They're competing with ours. That has not went well at all. I'd be curious to see any American that thinks what we're doing over there is really helping us out. You're getting cheap pants and a cheap T-shirt and a cheap phone that you throw away in a few years. Yeah, but you're helping build a superpower. You're helping build a superpower that may ultimately lead into something really awful. I just don't see it. China owns large amounts of our farmland since Pontiac grew. Yeah, but like I stated before, if there ends up being some type of conflict, that goes away. All deals are going to fall apart if something like that happens. Just like when we have military conflicts with other countries, we start seizing shit. Yeah, you owned a bunch of land, or you had a bunch of money in the bank or whatever. That doesn't apply anymore. Just like with Russia, the minute Russia went into the Ukraine, we started seizing bank accounts, yachts, corporate jets, and stuff all over the world. We didn't actually have any rights to any of that stuff. It's a product of what your leader is doing. You don't own this no more. You parked this yacht at a port in France. Well, France is on the other side of that. We're seizing your yacht now. That happened to a country like Russia. So it clearly can happen. And that would be the same thing that would happen here. If the Chinese go into Taiwan, and America is already, at least under the Biden administration, have already stated that they would defend Taiwan, all of that Chinese property ownership over here is in jeopardy. All of it would be. If you own anything in American banks, you need to cash your money out like Bitcoin before this NFT stuff. It's all going to disappear. We're not going to honor any of that shit. We're at war with you. Looking in the comments, already at the box. Let's try it again with all. What does that say? Awake eye. I can't pronounce that, but let's make happen. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 30,000 likes. I appreciate the fact you guys are rolling with your boy. This is indeed a MAGA-friendly program. MAGA's the preferred guest, but nevertheless, liberals are welcome too. No banning, no blocking, no censorship. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 30,000. Awake, if I can pronounce that, 2023. Good evening.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. We were actually originally talking about Governor Abbott of Texas busing immigrants to Kamala Harris's home sub-zero temperatures. They're not properly closed on Christmas Eve. Was that the right move to make?
You know, it's to the point now where I think that, we're at a sinister point of our government. I mean, whether or not you're on the right or the left, you got to know there's something wrong. And I mean, at this point, it's almost to the point where it's comical because
Yeah, but those are
I mean,
humans. Those are human beings.
no,
That
no, no,
can't be comical.
I know. I'm not willowing the um the value of a human life. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like
Right.
the way that our government is handling the whole thing from the bottom to the top, it's just ridiculous. Like I can't even fathom how unprofessional and how un-American we are being right now. It's just so sickening.
What would you
Like on both sides.
suggest what would you suggest we do in regards to our immigration problem right now? If you had the power.
If I had the power, I would install Trump's policies 100% again as soon as we could.
All of them? The remain in Mexico policy as well?
Yes, I would definitely do that, and I would give them their process to become citizenship. But there's no more just free coming over here whenever you want. No more open border. If you want to come here, you're gonna do it correct. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it the right way. Yeah, come here. That's fine, but come here legally.
Well, what if you're trying to flee the cartel or something like that? How do you come here legally under those circumstances if you got to file from Mexico?
I think that they should have encampments for kind of like a witness protection, if you will, like a guarded safe house for those types of individuals to have a place to go until they do or can reach their citizenship.
Yeah, but they don't. But that's something that would have to be had in Mexico. They don't have that right now. So without them having that, if you implement Trump's policies, what happens to somebody who's trying to flee the cartel?
Well, see, if you will, I would do something of an amendment, if you will. Like what I would do is, if I was in the government and I had the power, I would contact, Mexico's heads, and I would say, hey, here's what we're gonna do. We don't mind that you have these people coming into our country, but we want this to happen the legal way. We want to set up camps for people that are in danger from, say the cartel or whatever the case may be. Have places where they can go into transitions. Like they stay at one place and they go through all their paperwork, all their documentation, figure out what's going on, figure out why they want to come to America, what's the reasoning, what they're gonna, give to us and what we're gonna give to them back and forth, like a relationship and whatnot. And then they move forward, and then they file for their citizenship, and the process moves on and on.
Yeah, but if you're coming from a country like Venezuela that does not even have a government at this point, how can you get the paperwork and the stuff you're asking for? I mean, if the person says they came from Venezuela, you can barely even prove that they're from that country. They're not going to have anything when they show up to the border.
Well, that's where we'd have to work out a policy with Mexico. It would have to be something that we would work out as like a treaty of some sort. These are just my ideas. This is something that I would put forward.
Yeah, that's fair. I asked you for your opinion, but I'm just the way I'm thinking is if we implement Trump's policies, it would secure the border, but a lot of folks that are in desperate need of getting here would be turned away. It would turn away a lot of people.
That is true. It would turn away a lot of people.
Yeah.
But right now, the way that our country is right now, can you see anything that's happening right now ending up in a good way? Honestly,
depends on what is the goal. I mean, if you want a bunch of cheap labor, it's going to turn out good. If you want a bunch of Democratic votes, it's going to turn out good. Depends on what your opinion of a good way is. I mean, there's a reason why we have so many immigrants in this country is because people want them here. So for them, something obviously is turning out good.
Well, yeah, it's their way to make money.
Yeah,
plain and simple. It's still they're extorting them for their chances to become wealthy. It's pathetic. I think that jobs should be brought back to America. I think that Trump was on the right track, regardless if he's an asshole or not. He definitely had good policies. Yes, he was a moron sometimes, and I understand people don't like him. It's whatever. But you know damn well, if you're any kind of smart individual, you're gonna see and you do know that his policies were working.
Well, and I'll respond to that by also saying, and I'm not saying that his policies were that bad. I've said plenty of times I think his policies alone, he should have got a second term. But I would respond with your same comment. If you're smart and you're any kind of intelligent individual, you should have known what he is doing is hurting him and hurting his chances of getting reelected, which is why I would suggest anybody that was wearing the Fuck Your Feelings t-shirts or yelling out Pocahontas or Nervous Nancy or Sleepy Joe, all you're doing is hurting the guy you want to get reelected and making it so he's not going to win again. I mean, in my opinion, that should have been obvious that we're helping this man talk himself out of a job. We should not be, just like when he said Ron DeSanctimonious, notice how the Republicans did not give him praise. That's what they should have been doing from day one, is that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they helped that man talk himself out of a job. It's like really getting pulled over at a traffic stop and you're sitting on the curb while your friend is talking all kinds of shit to the cops and you're cheering them on. You're helping that man go to jail. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're helping that dude go to jail. And that's what they were doing with Trump.
So do you think that if he were to run, do you think that he'd have a chance? Do you think that he'd be able to get the GOP vote?
No, I think the damage is done. And I mean, not only that, but the Ron DeSanctimonious shit didn't help him out anymore. But I think he has so many GOP members that do not like him. I mean, right now, Mitch McConnell is still the head of the Republican side of the Senate, and he's even went after him. So even if for some reason he did win again, he would almost be a lame duck president from his own side. The man has created so many enemies unnecessarily that First, I can't see him getting reelected. But even if he did, I kind of wonder, like, what kind of administration would you have when so many people, even on your own side, do not like you? I mean, you can't call everybody a rhino. I mean, these people are running now. They're not president, but they're becoming senators and Congress people. They got egos. They demand respect. They've garnered thousands of votes in their districts in their states. They don't want some dude making nicknames about them and insulting the hell out of them and their families. You need them when it's time to pass their legislation and things like that. I never could understand why folks who were true supporters of Trump thought that was a good policy to just insult your way to glory. I never could understand it.
Yeah, it definitely stepped in his way from getting where he needed to be.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess it worked in the business world. It probably worked for him very well in the business world.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I've watched recent speeches that he's done, and he's come together a little bit better. Like he's more I don't know if you want to say focused, but he's trying to be more professional as a president would, but he still has that, he's still sour-assed about everything that happened. I think that he's going to take it personal.
Yeah, it would be like having a charity called Confederates for the Poor. It's too late. It's too late at this point. I mean, maybe because he gave the speech when he announced he was going to run for office, and it was more presidential and solemn, but in my opinion, the damage is done. I don't know if you can come back from that. It's probably too late for him.
I don't think I think that DeSantis is ready either, though.
He may not be ready. I actually think he is, but even if he's not ready, he doesn't have the enemies though. Fortunately, it looks like he's slowing down and not taking the path of Trump. Whereas, trying to insult your way to glory. You can do all of Trump's policies, which might be a winner, without doing that insulting stuff. Anybody, and if you notice in the midterms, all of the candidates like the Kerry Lakes and stuff that tried that, they lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to get past the Fuck Your Feelings crowd. They got to realize that they played a big part in making sure Trump did not get reelected. That stuff, what I think that with Trump being a successful businessman, I think that what he failed to realize that in regards to the difference of politics versus a business, in a business, it's your business. If you don't like the people, you can fire the board. They have to do it your way or no way. In politics, the people don't work for you. You work for the people. It's the other way around. If these people don't agree with what you're doing, you can't fire them. They're going to fire you. And that's where I think he would have been a far more effective leader as a dictator than as a running a republic.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, I'd be surprised if he wins again. He may get the Republican nomination. I can see that possibly happening, but I
Well, if
believe
he,
there's too many members. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if he does get the nomination for the Republicans, he will win. I know that. I mean, I'm almost 100% certain he'll win. But
I
like I
think
said,
there's I think there's a you can get 40-50% of the Republican voters and win a nomination. But that other remaining 20-30% of Republican voters, independents, and liberals are going to beat you. So you can get the Republican nomination and still lose handedly. Even if he get the Republican nomination, I just don't see it. Unless he really, really changes his tune and the person he's running against is awful. And right now, when you look at the Biden administration, it's not the same administration that it was 8, 9, 10 months ago. It's
no, it's not.
still, the border sucks. The border sucks. Inflation is high. Fuel prices are high. But it's not what it was in May or March or April. Things have gotten better. I don't think the current state of the economy is bad enough that the majority of Americans will say, "Well, we want Trump back." I
Do you think it'll
I
get?
think what he did while in power, huh?
Do you think it'll get any worse
What's your question? You know,
as
there
far as
are
the
people
economy?
who are suggesting we may get a recession. I don't. I'm not an economist. I can't speak on whether it'll get worse. But I watch a lot of right wing media, and they're predicting Armageddon. In fact, Bill O'Reilly came out and said it's going to be Armageddon. I can't go that far. I mean, it was the same thing when Obama ran for office. We were going to turn into socialist Greece. Greece was doing really bad. Now it's Venezuela. But when Obama ran, he was going to raise taxes 70%. It was going to be $5 gas everywhere, and he was going to turn us into socialist Greece. I can't always buy those arguments. I get you want to paint gloom and doom for the other side, but until I see it, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I feel you. I was just seeing where you
Yeah.
stand on it.
So let's give it time. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I got to move it on. Man. Come on back to me. It is a wait yet. I couldn't read your name at the bottom, but I see it now. So hopefully we are awake come 2024. But come on back to anytime. You're always welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. Good talk. In the comments, only 8% of the pipeline had been constructed. Yeah. Well,
Right now, with the fuel prices as they are in the country right now, they're not that bad. We're not quite at $2 a gallon gas, but we're not doing that bad on fuel prices anymore. If fuel prices stay the way they are now, like I was telling the last caller, I don't know if people will say, I want Trump back to save 50 cents on gas. Gas is, what is it, $3 a gallon or something like that now? It's went down a lot because I use E85 and I'm starting to pay under $2 a gallon for that shit. Now, E85 is the cheaper stuff, but yeah, you're starting to see gas in the $2 range, 280, anywhere between 250 a gallon and 3 or something like that. So it's going down in price. Somebody said you're frozen. How about food prices? That's what we're talking about. But keep in mind with food prices, a lot of that is tied to the price of fuel because they got to bring and deliver it. With fuel going down, the price of food should fall somewhat. Now, if you listen to the Biden administration, they're blaming some of this shit on corporate greed. I'm not here to say yay or nay, but make no mistake about it. If I can, when the economy shot up and I'm selling you eggs for $3 a dozen of eggs when they used to be 90 cents or some shit like that, and because the economy is higher, you as a consumer is used to paying $3 for a dozen of eggs, and all of a sudden the economy starts getting better. As a business person, I'm trying to figure out how I can keep you paying $3 for those eggs. So some of that inflation actually will end up being corporate greed. I've got used to paying these high rates for different things, and the economy's gotten better, but maybe I can still keep it high. Maybe they're, okay, right now the price of eggs is $5. And I know the inflation rates have dropped to the point where I can actually sell it to you for $2.50 and still make a profit. But you used to paying $5. If I drop it down to $4, you might view that as a discount. So I'm going to be as hesitant as possible in regards to dropping the price of things to match the actual economy. So some of that will be greed. Don't deny it. There's some of that's going to be greed. So I don't know if everything that we're paying for right now is based solely on the Biden economy, or if some of it is due to corporate greed. And that is what the Biden administration is blaming it on. But I see in the comments, you guys are saying I'm frozen, so I guess I'm going to have to go ahead and terminate this live if TikTok does that after a while. So I do appreciate you guys rolling with me. You can be where you want to be on TikTok, but because I'm frozen, I guess we're going to have to terminate. Look, I can see the comments, though. Says you're breaking up. Yeah, something else going wrong. So we'll go ahead and but as I said, we'll make it happen later.
4, 3. That's tomorrow, and that is it. Up again. 5, 4, 3. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.